CRA Community Redevelopment Association meeting to order. The day is August 23rd. The time is 6:04 p.m. Madam Clerk. Here.
Here.
Present. I think I heard Lanier. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't hear
Yeah,
I
she
can't hear my
did.
name being called.
Hold on one second. Commissioner Pro Temp Lanier, you're there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Commissioner Lanier is here.
When you pick up the mic by these things, you
Okay.
unhook the mic, so just try to try your best to speak to the mic.
Thank you,
Still
sir.
waiting on that
Okay.
training.
Chair Lawson,
Here.
Chair Pro Temp Lanier,
Here.
Commissioner McCoy,
Here.
Commissioner Miller Anderson,
Present.
Commissioner Botel. Here. Also present, Attorney Chris Smith with Pittman Law Group, Jonathan Evans, the CRA Executive Director, Scott Evans, Director of Planning and Development, Anita Jenkins, Director of Neighborhood Services, and Shirley Desir, the Interim CRA Clerk.
Thank you, Pro Temp. If we can have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Dr. Botel. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
We would like to remove item 7B, community partners funding request by inner city youth golfers nonprofit development project. We'd like to remove that item.
Thank you. And Walter, if you could check the mics for me, we're just getting a little bit of.
I got it.
Thank you, Executive Director Evans. Board members, any additional? Board, if we could entertain moving to consent, item 7C, Resolution 2023-17. Item 7E, moving that to consent, that's the clean and safe resolution. And item 7F, Resolution 2023-19. That resolution we actually approved and voted on May 24th, and this is just bringing it to the board for approval.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The request for the board members, 7C, Resolution 2023-17. That's the Chenmore.
Yes.
7E, which is the clean and safe space.
Mhm.
And 7F, 2023-19. That's the local match. We approved that actually back on May 24th, but this is actually the resolution bringing before the board.
I'm fine with those.
Board members?
Yes.
Good?
Chair,
Pro Temp, go ahead.
I'd like to hear 7F.
I'm sorry, Pro Temp, which one?
I'd like to hear 7F.
7F? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Pro Temp. All right, so we'll leave that on the regular agenda. Everyone else, we're okay with 7C and 7E.
Yes.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and properly second. Madam Clerk?
Did we approve the consent agenda?
We're going to do that next. We just moved those items to consent. and then
Oh, oh.
We're just doing the agenda right now.
Yeah, consent agenda first.
I'm sorry?
Let me make the
I'm
motion
sorry.
to approve the consent
Move the
agenda.
consent,
Yes.
correct. Yes, ma'am.
Wait, we're adopting
Oh, we
the
adopted
agenda?
No.
additions and
Adopting
deletions.
agenda.
We're adopting it. We're on adoption of agenda. Yes.
Oh, Disclosures, actually. Do we do
Mhm.
disclosure? Any disclosures?
Disclosures?
No.
Disclosures by the board? And this adoption, the motion that was made and seconded was for the adoption of the agenda.
Yes.
Disclosures by the board? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Chair Pro Temp Lanier,
Yes.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes 5-0.
Thank you. Consent agenda is routine business of the board. The consent agenda is approved by a single majority vote. Items may be removed for open discussion at the request of any commissioner. Commissioners, anyone want to remove an item from consent?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
with those correct.
with the additions to
Yeah.
consent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
Motion been
second.
made
Second.
and properly second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
Yes.
That vote passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Presentations, 5A.
Villa Laon's Townhouse Project, Phase 1, 2, and 3. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed. Mr. Chair, we have no comment cards.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, at this time, I will ask that the Director of Neighborhood Services, Ms. Anita Jenkins, make this presentation.
Welcome, Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners, and Mr. Evans and Mr. Smith. I'm very happy to be able to come and provide an update on the Villa Laon's project. As we've talked through this over some months, we've talked about the progress in Phase 1. We've talked about the activities in developing Phase 2, and we wanted to come to you to talk about a potential additional part to the project that you might consider, that in meeting the goals that you set out in creating additional home ownership within our community, additional housing for our workforce, as well as neighborhood level retail and commercial space. So I'll just walk through a little bit of the highlights of the various phases. And shortly, our architect, Mr. Rick Gonzalez, will be joining us. Unfortunately, he was caught up in a little traffic, so I expect him to come to the door any minute. On the screen, you see a rendering that's very beautiful, and that is the proposed rendering for Phase 2 of Villa Laon's. And just for the public's benefit, I'd like to reiterate what the project is and where it is. Villa Laon's Phase 1 is located at the intersection of 11th Street and Avenue E in the South Park Manor neighborhood. There are a variety of uses surrounding this parcel. There is a former church site which has been razed and demolished. There are several vacant land parcels around. There are nearby residential apartments that are sparsely sprinkled throughout the neighborhood. And there are still some single-family units that are homesteaded in that particular community. The site for Villa Laon's is approximately 1.5 blocks from the marina. So this is a very attractive site for housing and for our workforce as we develop various projects along the Broadway and the Avenue E corridor. We all know that housing is at a crisis point, in our community. And let me just pause and just introduce our architect who's here, Rick Gonzalez. We know that there is a demand for quality workforce housing. We are undertaking several developments that include housing at various price points within several blocks of this particular project site. And may I just mention, to orient the public and to orient everyone for this discussion, a block to the east is a project that you'll hear about a little bit more tonight on the Spanish Court site, which will be an elderly affordable project. On north of Blue Heron Boulevard, under construction is the Berkeley Landing project, which is a project that is financed by tax credits, which will be a family project. Also proposed, and you all have discussed this within the marina development, will be a tower of market rate housing on that site. So we think that Villa Laon's is well positioned to bring much needed workforce housing to our community. This is a project where the first two phases are being developed by the Riviera Beach CRA and the Riviera Beach CDC with cooperation and support from our city. The site has been joined together, and phase one has received site plan approval by our city council, and we're in the process of having our plat certified by our city clerk to be recorded at Palm Beach County in the clerk's office. Yes. Oh, and it's ready for bids. We're getting it ready for bids. So you'll hear more about that at the next update that you have. Just to talk about what the various concepts will be in phase one, this will be 12 units of home ownership. We know that the income targeting is 80 to 140% of AMI, marketed to low to moderate and close to market families. Phase two is proposed as 24 two-level townhouse units, 52 multifamily dwelling units in a four-story building, and 12 two and three level townhouse units in phase 2A, we're calling it, 42 dwelling units in three levels above retail and 4,000 square feet of commercial. I'll stop there and turn it over to Mr. Gonzalez to walk us through in a little bit more detail what the site plan entails. There, if you click through, click here. Yeah, it should be this button. I think. Yeah. Let me see. I'm not sure if it will advance.
Is it the green button for the?
Yes.
Okay, there it goes.
Oh, someone's moving it for me. Thank you.
Andres.
Can somebody move it to the site plan? One more. Sheet 4. One more. Thank you. Good evening, Commission, and apologies for short commute, but traffic sometimes gets you. Rick Gonzalez, REG Architects. We've been working with the CRA and with the CDC for quite a while now. Before I start this project, I wanted to share with you that we just finished a very similar project in Delray Beach, 64 units, and there was a waiting list of 600 people. Wow. There is a crisis, as we all know, in affordable housing right now. Very colorful buildings, two-story, very similar to what we're proposing over here, and the need is intense all over coastal Palm Beach County. So we're very happy to be working with Anita and Scott on this potential project of 3 phases. As Anita mentioned, phase 1 and 2 are on the right side, on the eastern side along Avenue E. Avenue E is now becoming a very important street, very important boulevard in Riviera Beach with the redevelopment from the port, from this southern location all the way up north. And it's a perfect spot to put this type of product, to put townhouse product, walk-up units, and commercial spaces, as you can see on the diagram on the far right of the site plan. A block and a half to the west is what we've been calling phase 3. And by the way, in phase 2, we are in the site planning process right now. We've working with George Gentile and his company in preparing the site plan process. Phase 1, which were the original 12 units on the bottom left-hand corner, those drawings are ready to go in for permit. We just need to pick the general contractor and start construction as soon as possible. Phase 3 on the far west side would have a small clubhouse, amenities area, swimming pool, club, children's area on the right-hand side, the orange building. And it would have similar townhouse buildings facing Avenue 11 West, very similar 24, 28 units. And then the upper 2 buildings, by the way, they're adjacent to the Boys and Girls Club, which is the peachy colored building there on the right, upper right. Those 2 buildings would be, again, mixed-use type units with commercial, live, work, residential above, and then commercial small shops facing Avenue 13 West, which comes into this area over here. So it's an important opportunity to allow for small businesses to have on-street presence. And then the residential on the other building on the other corner. Total of 48 townhouses on this final phase, 63 walk-ups, 4,000 commercial on the corner building and 8,000 on the other corner building. 120 parking spaces and 55 on-street parking spaces for visitors to the mixed-use property. Can I get the next slide, please? This is a view with the roof plans showing you the future portion next to the Boys and Girls Club. Next slide, please. These are the layouts. Again, similar products on the southeast, similar to the southwest, and then the more intense mixed use towards the Avenue 13th. Next slide. The units. Next. I think this is the last one. Yeah, these are the actual blow-ups of the buildings. So the conceptuals, we've been thinking about them quite a bit for quite a while, and we're ready, once we get the go-ahead, to move forward with the final phase. I think there might be a rendering or two. Let me see, is there any more? Another picture? There we go. And so these are the how it would fit, how the neighborhood plan would lay out. At the far upper right-hand corner would be phase 1, phase 2A and 2B. And up close to us on the bottom left-hand corner would be phase 3 on the backside, A, and then the bigger buildings, 3B and 3C, on the north side and on the west side of the site. Very well thought out. My only regret is that we don't have the land in the middle to connect it all together, right? It would be beautiful, but, you know, I know Anita's been trying hard to get the land, but that's not available at this time.
And let me just clarify something, commissioners. Phase 1 and 2, we do have site control. Phase 3 is a potential concept of what could fit on that space. I know that from time to time, there's been expressed an interest for additional housing in the area, and this is one potential future in terms of what that neighborhood could look like. But we've thought through how to make the entire site synergistic, meeting a variety of needs and meeting the overall goal of bringing the workforce housing mixed income, mixed use, and mixed type buildings. And we've even thought through in terms of a potential concept for phase 3, where the existing tenants might be incorporated into the retail where there is social service space. And we would definitely suggest that the Judge Rogers Center spirit, concept, name, and intent be incorporated in the project. We've also thought through that a potential, if you were so inclined to move ahead, to allow us to move ahead, that phase 3 would be primarily marketed to teachers, to bus drivers, to even to crossing guards who could afford some of the apartment units, to our first responders, to our workforce here in the city. And definitely the project would be attractive to people who have jobs at the marina, at the port, and along some of the businesses on Broadway and coming soon to Avenue E. The entire project concept envisions lush landscaping, a parkour area on one of the lots in between phase 1 and phase 2, walking trails. And I know on the city side, you all have seen various iterations of the Parks Master Plan that envisions creating a system of walking trails throughout the city. And this project, which would connect to Avenue E from 10th Street North, would be excellent for encouraging walkability and having the sidewalks for biking, et cetera, and strolling as people move over to the marina to partake in the recreation, restaurant, and water activities there. The design is cohesive. It is timely. It is current. And perhaps you could talk about the arcade concept in phase 2 a little bit.
Yes. Hopefully the pointer works too. Yes, and the buildings will have shade. You know, shade is very important nowadays. So covered arcades, especially for shopping. For example, if you go up to Abacoa or if you go to some of the buildings in downtown West Palm Beach, it's very popular. And we need it more than ever now. So on phase 2, no, it's not working. Oh, brother.
If he goes back to the very first slide, Walter.
Here we go, right there.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. So on phase 2, 2B, that would be this building over here at this location. Okay. And the theme is just like we did in Villa Lawns on phase 1, colorful, Caribbean inspired. A lot of us have roots in the Caribbean here in South Florida, in Palm Beach and in Riviera Beach. And so we've incorporated that into the design of the buildings. I would be more than happy to own a unit there. That's the way I did like to design our buildings, you know, things that we would like to do. The 3-story ones are very nice, very large, and the 2-story ones are great starter homes too, so you have a variety. And then the apartments on phase 2, oops, there it goes again. On phase 2, you have the smaller apartments there too, above the commercial space.
The project would meet building great neighborhoods and achieving a prosperous, resilient, and sustainable economy. We found in our work that where there is a mix of uses and incomes, it creates vibrancy within a community. And you're able to see the synergy with the small businesses. We've had interest, for instance, from some of the people who provide catering here at the marina who are looking for commercial kitchen space. And the commercial space along Avenue E, a portion of that would be ideal for something like that. I heard at a meeting the other day where someone asked a resident, said, when are we going to get a bakery in our area? This would be ideal for a little neighborhood level bakery or tea shop, et cetera, for people to enjoy. And our arcade would allow small bistro tables and chairs, if you can envision that, as people walk along the avenue going to the water or just strolling Avenue E, which will become a pedestrian way as well as one for cars. So we wanted to bring this to you and let you know that we've thought through the potential price points and we're looking at the most efficient way to get this built. So very shortly, you'll hear about our path to attract a general contractor and about what the financing stack will look like. And with phase 1, we know that we could very quickly move on to phase 2A, and we could, if we were to announce it tonight, we would have a wait list for phase 2A for those for sale townhouse units, and we would definitely have a wait list for the apartments where people could hardly wait. So we'll stop there and just see if you have any questions of us while I have Mr. Gonzalez here to answer any architectural design or project questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Commissioners. Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Jenkins, I am going to repeat what I said yesterday so I can, I'm good now. Okay, cool. So I can share with my members my concerns with this. You know, I certainly don't have any issues with phase 1 or phase 2, but, you know, members, I think we need to also keep in mind phase 3 is currently the site that the Alpha Educational Center is on. And there are some issues with that has to be worked out. And my conversation with Ms. Jenkins and her team yesterday was, I think this phase 3 is very much a concept that is very premature in that we have some deed restrictions that has to be first resolved with the school district, and to have a conceptual plan on this site at this point, I think is nothing more than just that, a concept. Now, interestingly, I would ask the board if they'd be inclined to accept the opportunity to give the housing authority the ability to offer a proposal on this site as well, especially considering, right, they had a groundbreaking, which I could not attend because I had a funeral that day. But, you know, I've met with them a number of times and they've expressed interest not only in the 11 single family home sites, but specifically bringing a multifamily project at this site as well. So I think it's a great concept, but I don't want to be so closed-minded to think that this is the only and best option for us. You know, I think this is a great idea, but first, I think we need to resolve the issues regarding the deed restriction, which kind of brings up a number of different questions, considering there are a lot of variables that has to take place. You know, we're talking about currently Mr. Evans, the matter of referendum and doing a joint facility with the school district, and the appetite for the school district to even release this without any kind of deed restrictions. But more importantly, I want to make sure that this actually is in the control of the city of Riviera Beach before we have conceptual plans that, you know, are expended with the CRA's logo on it when, you know, we never even sanctioned this. So I think this is way too far ahead of where we're going to be, especially considering we have another dependent agency within the city of Riviera Beach that has expressed interest in this site. So I think while it's a great project, and I certainly like that we were able to put a lot of units on, you know, those parcels of land, I want to make sure that, you know, we do no differently what we did when we had the two proposals on Broadway that was competing for the 9% tax credit applications, where both had an opportunity to submit, and we as a board decided and voted on. And I regrettably wasn't a part of, you know, the project that I chose wasn't the one that ultimately came forward. And we know that Berkeley Landing was the result of that. But certainly I want to make sure that we provide the same opportunity to the housing authority to bring forth a proposal like this, you know, considering this, because here's just the first part. Yeah, we could potentially get past that reverter language that the school district has that doesn't exactly allow for housing. However, there's another arm that has to be considered. What does it take in times of bringing something to market and what that financing looks like? So that is my position, and I want to see that we're fair and equitable in this property. But obviously, I think we would agree, both as a CRA and a city council, that our goal has been in increasing housing and home ownership, as well as housing opportunities in the city. So I certainly want to make sure that we extend that opportunity to the Riviera Beach Housing Authority as well. Because, you know, and then members, let me tell you, I was very much surprised when the agenda was released to find out this was the property, because I'm saying there clearly shows that there's not enough communications going on. Because if I just had this conversation with the housing authority about this very property last week, and then once the agenda gets released on late Thursday, now I see that the CRA is already bringing forth a conceptual plan for that site, lets me know that there's clearly all the parties aren't communicating. And I want to make sure that we bring everybody to the table to have a fair shot at this. And that's really for feedback from my board members, because, you know, obviously we can certainly hand everything off to the CDC to let them develop, but certainly, you know, you got to remember, and I look back at the originating ordinance, the creation of the Riviera Beach Housing Authority was done by the Riviera Beach City Council. So certainly I don't want to treat them like they're an orphan child of the city, but certainly they doing great work out on Blue Heron at Heron Estates.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. Board members? Commissioner Miller Anderson, please.
Maybe I missed it. How many townhomes did you say it would be in the second phase?
Phase 2 would have an additional 12 townhomes, and the rest would be workforce apartments, with the fourth floor potentially being for sale condos with bottom floor retail. That's in phase 2.
And how many is that?
Hold on a
Oh,
minute here.
potentially.
Phase 2 has 12 2- and 3-story townhouse units, 42 apartments that are on 3 levels with a bottom floor retail. So it's a 4-story set of buildings on phase 2.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
And then
Board
I was
members?
just going to talk about phase 3.
Thank you. Board members?
Chair,
Board Member Lanier, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the question in regards to, I mean, I just found out that phase 3 is the alpha site. Now, the question is, if the CRA has property, does it automatically go to the CDC? Is there not some type of process where other entities can be entertained? Because it seems as if with us finding out today that this is the alpha site, that it just automatically goes to the CDC. And I don't think that that is fair to other entities. I mean, and not just this site. There are other sites that have been taken over by the CDC, but there is no other entities who've been entertained for the property as well. So I just need to get some clarity as to how that works.
Thank you, Board Member Lanier. Either Mr. Evans or Ms. Jenkins?
Yes, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please, Mr. Evans.
With respect to properties that are currently owned and under the control of the CRA, there is situations where there is partnerships with the CDC, but the CDC does acquire some parcels, and in partnership with the CRA, there may be a parcel that's owned by the CRA and a parcel that's owned by the CDC, and then through a partnership, that relationship is consummated for economic development purposes. This particular site is in the CRA, but is not under the control of the CRA. It is actually under the control of the city with the deed restriction that has been provided by the school district going back some time ago as it relates to a property swap. So in the event that this parcel is activated, it would require a partnership with whichever entity, but it would be more so on the city side. The reason that phase 3 came to fruition was conversations with staff and discussions that we've heard from the board, is that we knew that we were going to move forward with phase 1 and phase 2, and then this opportunity in light of the housing crisis, how can we pivot to utilize that particular site to see a situation where housing can be provided for on the site. And so this process or these conversations, all that they may be premature from a perspective discussion with the board, there's been over about a year's worth of conversations staff has had internally talking about the concept and the activation. Now, if it is the board's pleasure with respect to considering a process to solicit who can come forth with the best ideas or the sharpest pencil concerning that, that's something certainly under the purview of the city council to be able to do that. And so it is not a situation where it's a foregone conclusion that the property or the development would be done by the CDC. It was in concert and discussion with continuing the activation of the particular corridor with the similar style development. And so, as previously stated, we would like to have the situation where those two parcels in the center were to be acquired, because then it would have a lot of connectivity and synergy. But it could be the direction of the board to facilitate a process or to bring other partners to the table. And Ms. Jenkins, correct me if I'm wrong, is that this development, the larger development on the Alpha site, is going to require significant partnerships to facilitate it, because it is well over a $50 million development, correct?
Yes, and in our conversations with staff, we believe that it would require a P3 in order to bring the financing to bear. Because I was asked if the CRA had those kind of dollars, and we don't. And to be able to leverage that. The other concern, and one of the main impetuses behind doing this total project, looking at it from a phase standpoint, is trying to create a market in this particular neighborhood. We are very close to industrial uses, and although it's close to the marina, there is also a huge industrial influence, and trying to encourage homeownership takes a deft hand in terms of bringing those units and bringing buyers to market. And one of the other advantages of the partnership is just having a pipeline of ready buyers ready to move in, and a pipeline of people who are financially qualified to seek rental assistance. And just to clarify, as you all might remember, approximately 2 years ago, after much discussion, presentations, and discussion with the entire commission, we brought forth a negotiated development agreement between the CDC and the CRA that defined the partnership and the roles and responsibilities of the entities. And just to also clarify, the CRA is not given the CDC anything. It's a partnership. The CDC has also brought parcels. The CRA did not control everything within the project.
Commissioner?
Chair,
Go ahead, Pro Temp.
yeah, I don't think my question was answered because, first of all, the CRA does give the CDC $300,000 every year. Secondly, if this is a project that the CDC took it upon themselves to develop, I just want to know who authorized that, and number two, why was no other entity even entertained?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Ms. Evans, go ahead.
As it relates to phase one and phase two, those obviously have gone through the process, the iterations concerning the renderings that you've seen on the property that is referred to the Alpha property. That property has not been committed to the CDC. It has not been committed to any particular entity. And the board, city council has the ability to facilitate whatever process they deem fit for the purposes of activating the site. The renderings were provided to be able to show you conceptually what we thought of the site and to see that there is an opportunity on the site. That is within the purview of my responsibilities concerning the executive director. So I had staff let's provide some visuals to the board that we're looking at this site, not as what it exists today, but what it can be in the future, and creating the synergy between the different projects. And I'm glad that we were able to do that, because now the site is being considered for housing versus what it has consistently sat as is a campus where modular units on. And so that was the foresight of staff saying, let's look to bring some additional housing and react to the housing market to expand what the offerings are. So the board it's well within your purview as city council persons to enter into conversations, discussions, negotiations, or a solicitation concerning that particular parcel from the open market or our partners from the Housing Authority or the CDC or any other partners for that matter.
Any additional
Chair,
comments? Go ahead, Pro Temp.
Yeah, I just think that, and I still didn't get my question answered. I just think that this says phase one, phase two, and phase three. That means that this was a part of the concept of what you brought to us previously for Villa Leone. So this was not something that you just brought to say, okay, hey, this is how it could look. You made this as a part of the phases. So that about giving it to you just to see, for you to see how it looks is not correct. But I just want to make sure that if you are conceptualizing anything in terms of what's happening with CRA property or city property, that you bring it to the board first so that we can have some discussion about it, and not just bring it to us as a part of a phase or part of a project that you already have going on.
Board members? Well, let me preface my comments on, I absolutely love the project based upon the conversation I had with Mr. Evans and Ms. Jenkins. I'm gonna lead with that. I do have some questions. Phase three cost. What was the cost for the renderings, Mr. Evans, to do the renderings for phase three?
I don't have that information available in front of me. I don't know if anyone from the staff can.
We'd
can
have
speak
to
to
get it back.
If we can get that ASAP, because this is my concern. And Ms. Jenkins, Mr. Scott Evans, this is the conversation I had in my agenda review. Instead of us spending the last 45 minutes to talk about the amazing project and work that you guys have accomplished for phases 1 and 2, we spent the last 45 minutes talking about a project that I agree is premature, that Mr. Evans stated that's been working on for a year, yet the board members are just seeing it tonight when I'm trying to make this a celebratory event for phases 1 and 2, which we're excited about. Phase 3 is a concept when we do not have the deed restriction cleared from the school district. I've met with individuals from the school district and we've gotten support, but staff has not taken the steps necessary to finalize that deed restriction. So that's why it is considered premature. That's number one. We just talked about recently, in the coming weeks, a housing summit, which could have given us an opportunity to further discuss the concerns, the thoughts, and the vision of this board. Yet I think that staff jumped the gun by showcasing phase 3 when I was very clear that I think that this board would not be supportive of that. And of course, you have all rights, staff, to do as you please. But when I told you that this board would have major issues and that, again, we look incompetent because we're bringing something to the board that we didn't approve or authorize. And I'm not sure if we're going to have the support to move forward with phase 3, even though it's an amazing project, especially with the information you gave me, Ms. Jenkins. So I would really like some additional insight and clarity before staff makes the decision to spend city dollars, to spend CRA dollars on anything that this board may or may not have the intent of supporting, so that we can make sure we're moving the city forward. And I'm absolutely concerned with who authorized this rendering, this process, and these steps without the direction of this board, because we're not working clearly and close-handedly with our housing authority. I think that what you told me in the meeting, Ms. Jenkins, in regards to the possible addition to the ad valorem tax, the TIF, and not making it a tax credit property helps our tax base. It helps with our ad valorem. It helps with what we're trying to develop in our community. But we want to make that decision. And I don't think you gave us that opportunity. In addition to it being premature, I'm frustrated because we spent 45 minutes talking about something that may or not happen when we have phase 1 and 2 that we could have got more insight and in-depth with. Because I do have questions about the townhouses. What is the property adjacent or immediately to the north of the townhouses on phase 2A? What is that property? What does that rendering look like? What view are those residents going to have? I had so many questions about 1 and 2, but I mean, we took majority of the city business, of the CRA business time to talk about something that doesn't have support. So I guess if you could answer that question, the rest was just for statement purposes. If you could answer, what is the property behind to the north of the 2A townhouses?
2A would have a green view. As you know, we don't control the site where the church and those apartments were. We tried mightily
Yes.
to acquire it, but we could not because the dollars were not available. We were bidding against the market. The property just to the north of the 2A, we have under site control, and actually there is a closing contemplated for today, but it will be a green space. So people will have a beautiful passive park, green space with parkour equipment, and it will be an amenity for all of the townhomes.
Do you have any additional renderings of 1 and 2 that we could see instead of it just being in the top right-hand corner? Is there something a little closer we can view?
Go back. Maybe, Walter, if you could start from the top and we'll tell you when to stop, if you would, because the clicker is not working.
Could you put sheet 12? Walter.
He's behind us.
And then after 12, we'll show 13. Sheet 12. Thank you. This is, yes.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Avenue E.
Mhm.
Here's 13th, right, the curve. So first of all, it starts with a really nice little plaza pocket park to bring people from the area into the development, the neighborhood. The retail, it's hard to see, but there's retail arcade on the first floor, and then as Anita mentioned the apartments on the upper floors for these two portions. The parking is on the rear parking lot, and there's also on-street parking. And then you've already approved and you've seen all the drawings for Phase 1, right?
Yes.
Which is the Alliance. And then Phase 2A is a mirror image of Phase 1. So those become a very nice, tight little urban neighborhood. And then Anita mentioned the parcel that she's about to buy is this one over here, right, Anita? Right over here, and that's going to become another green space at this location.
Excellent.
Could you show me rendering number 13, please? And here's another view. This is now from the southeast. So this is Phase 1. That's already ready to go to construction any day now, as soon as we get a contractor. Phase 2A, so there's 24 townhouses there. And then Phase 2B, which will take a little bit longer over here at this location. Entrance to the parking lot here, and there's another entrance over here off of 13th. Also with on-street parking over here and over here.
Now, this project is going to be phenomenal
Thank you.
for the community. The rendering, how you fit it into that parcel would be amazing. I even love the additional for Phase 3. I just think, again, it's premature to present to the board, even though I think that we want to just kind of get out and just let the board know what's being worked on and what potential we have. I think Phase 1 and Phase 2 will sell out the first day because there is a housing crisis, as you stated, and we need to get to work on it. My next question is for Phase 1 and for Phase 2, what additional support, Ms. Jenkins, or what does staff need to get this done? Because I think we need to get these doors open as quickly as possible for the residents.
So phase one is ready to go to advertise. We are working with Mr. Savick, I think, or we're considering working with him.
We're contemplating and we'll have a decision in a few days on the GC path to move forward. So just making sure that we have, we continue our communication with the Development Services Department. They've been very helpful in terms of pre-submittal meetings and assisting us through a very difficult site planning process. As I said, we are ready to record our plat, and I think the last thing that's needed are your signatures on that as council people.
Excellent.
So we're moving that ahead, and you'll hear about the solicitation because we're going to make sure that we reach out to our local contractor community for subcontract opportunities. We're going to have a special, we have a pipeline of buyers, people who have submitted letters of interest, but we'll make sure that we have a targeted marketing opportunity to reserve those particular units remember that our intent is to make sure that the project is sustainable. And let me just point out that we were asked to provide information, and I think preliminary conversations have been made with the representative at the school board, and we've talked about what the approach would be. And we were asked to have a concept in hand to facilitate a discussion. And that was our only intent, and we were sharing it with you. And Mr. Evans has been very clear, and we've all discussed as staff and with the architects that to make sure that it's a concept, because myself, we're very sensitive to the community and the tenants who are out there now. So this project, from the beginning, would contemplate having the social service space for nonprofits and to be able to facilitate that. Additionally, if you were to go back to the last time I gave an update, there was actually a site plan included in your packet for that. And if you look at the housing presentation that staff started some weeks ago that we were not able to complete, and you all asked us to come back with a housing, and I caution you about calling it a summit, but that's your choice. But the housing meeting that we'll be having in September, if you look through the presentation, this potential concept is included, and we were going to discuss it at that phase as well. And thirdly, before we started to conceptualize Phase 1 even, CRA staff did have a number of conversations with the Housing Authority about possible uses for those parcels 3 or 4 years ago, for quite some time and quite a few meetings.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. And I agree. The housing meeting that we're going to have in September will give additional insight and support from the direction of the board. This has been a project. I think some of the frustration is that we've been talking about this project for a number of years. And whether it's staff, whether it's whoever, I was able to attend the ribbon cutting with the Housing Authority, and I gave greetings on behalf of all my board members. So I'm not sure what direction we need to go with all the land in our community, but I just we need doors, and I don't have time to just keep talking about it. So I know that we need to get this accomplished immediately. So even though this was going to be presented, we stopped that meeting because I don't think that we needed to apply the limited time we had to having a in-depth conversation like we're going to do for the housing meeting, as you would like for us to call it in September. Do you have a date for that as of yet, Ms. Jenkins?
I don't, but I believe the clerk has circulated potential dates, the
Okay.
city clerk.
I think that's
has.
going to be a
It's a city
priority for this
meeting.
board. So we
Yes.
want to make sure that we can get a clear direction because we have no longer time to wait to figure out what we're going to do about housing because residents are desperately struggling to find housing and we have to address that. So I don't care how many partners we bring to the table, whoever can build these doors as quickly as possible, working with our staff. So that's my only concern right now. Board members?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Councilman, Commissioner McCoy, go
I
ahead.
don't want to get ahead of Commissioner Botel. I think,
No,
Sorry.
go right ahead.
Commissioner,
So my point exactly, and I think we kind of share the same comments. It really doesn't matter to me. I just want to be fair with it, but most importantly, I think we got to get a product that puts people, because we get these calls, if not daily. I know certainly a week doesn't pass by when someone contacts us about being displaced. So I certainly understand that. Can you remind me, Ms. Jenkins, and before I go to that, but it really helps, right, that we have these conversations. And Mr. Chairperson, you asked about who sanctioned it and that sort of thing. I think I would encourage us to let's focus on going forward, because we know the executive director as well as his staff has the prerogative and the ability within their spending authority to make various purchases as they deem necessary. So I think more importantly, I think it was well intentioned. However, it just almost undermines the work we do as elected officials when I'm literally out spending 2 hours at the housing authority talking about potential possibilities when there's another concept that's already being worked on and we're not made aware of it. So it's like, I just really want to make sure that I'm a part of the same team and that we're operating, and we're stepping in the same direction, because this was clearly a surprise. But going forward, I think certainly they had the prerogative and it was well intentioned, but I just think we need to kind of coordinate better. Can you remind me, Ms. Jenkins, of what the CRA's contribution is for phase 2 of this project?
The land, the CRA has not made a commitment to phase 2 as yet. And Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, and Mr. Evans, in the upcoming budget, there is an amount allocated for phase 2, knowing that we're in the site plan process.
And so that's very important for us to keep in mind, members, because if all we're doing as the CRA is contributing land and perhaps even some seed capital or whatever it is to close the deal, then more or less this is a CDC's project. And if that is the case, we should be treating this no different than how do we now put the Riviera Beach Housing Authority in our budget on the city side to say, hey, we know that you guys are working on a great project over here. And in fact, I think if we can recall, I remember during COVID, we had this discussion that the city of Riviera Beach set aside, I think it was $500,000 with the anticipation of Heron Estates using the local match, and they ended up using some other financing arm, so they didn't need it. But certainly I want to make sure that we're being equal and equitable in that process. And I just wanted to make sure that, we all are on the same page when it comes to, some of the development opportunities in terms of housing.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner McCoy.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Hold on, Mr. Evans. Commissioner Botel, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, go ahead.
Two things that I do want to make sure that we don't leave very quickly is that obviously Ms. Jenkins did speak of
the concept and the desire that we as staff moved forward with providing a visual to the school district in order to facilitate the conversation, and similar to no different than what we did for the Inlet Grove campus to talk about what our plans were. So we had to provide them with a visual to see, and we had to show the continuity and the consistency of what we're trying to build in that particular area and how that property fits in. The other side of it is, and I don't have the information available to me, but I believe that in the discussion when we talked about the Alpha lease agreement, the reason why the lease agreement only allowed for 6 months with a 6-month extension was we had discussed the possibility and the activation of that parcel as it relates to housing. And so that was something that was born out of the conversations that we have had in a variety of different situations. And I personally, and I know the deputy city manager, have had conversations with the Alphas concerning what we wanted to do with that particular site. So there has been a lot of conversations on the housing front. Now, as it relates to the housing authority, and I know the board has met with the housing authority or some board members, I have just recently met with the housing authority, and that's when it came up with respect to this particular site. But again, that's something that's still within the scope and the purview of the board. And if there's a process that during the housing discussion or workshop that we wanted to talk in greater detail or provide for a proposal, I think, you know, at the end of the day, I think we all need to get on the same page to effectively get more doors in our community. And whoever can do that and whoever can assist in doing that, you know, we stand ready and willing to partner with whomever.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Botel, go ahead.
Now I'll say, I'm happy to know, Mr. Evans, that you've had conversations with the Housing Authority. I am completely supportive of having an open process where the Housing Authority would have an opportunity to work with the city and the CRA on development of that project. I want to thank Ms. Jenkins and Mr. Gonzalez for making this presentation this evening, because I think it was we who asked for more information about the third phase. You know, so thank you to us for asking, and thank you to you for providing. Although it's very preliminary, it is important for us to see the concept. So I'm glad that you spent the time and energy to put something in front of us, as you did for benefit of the school district, put something in front of them that they could grasp a hold of and say, okay, we can see the vision. So I just want to thank you for that, and hope that we can have an open process where everybody is involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Botel. Board members? Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins, for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk? 7A?
Request for CRA Board review of the development project proposed by Marina Marine. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed. Mr. Chair, we have no comment cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Evans?
Is this a motion?
No, it's just a review of the proposal.
But it's asking for a vote.
Mr. Evans, are we going to be looking for a vote at the end of this?
Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we vote.
You want to hear the project first?
Yeah,
Let's
'cause
hear
I'm
it
not
first.
sure what
Let's hear it first, and then we can see what we want to do. Go ahead, Mr. Evans. I know you're excited. Go ahead, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, at this time, I ask for the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Scott Evans, to make this presentation. Mr.
Hey,
Evans.
Mr. Evans.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This is a review of development projects submitted by Mariner Marine, and they are requesting for the CRA board to review their project. They're proposing a 30,000 square foot office showroom and service area for their boat sales facility. And this includes a 2-story showroom, which would front along Broadway and would meet urban design standards for that corridor. It's also adjacent to the port transition area, which is the CRA's designation for the area between 11th Street and 10th Street, which is south of their property. The new site plan is proposed. It's been submitted to the city. And as a part of that process, any project that falls within the boundaries of the CRA are required to be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Board and by the CRA Board. And then the comments made by those boards and recommendations are then forwarded to the City Council for final approval. So this project was submitted to Development Services, and it went to the Planning and Zoning Board on August 10th. And they received a vote to recommend that the City Council approve the site plan. The site plan is shown on the left. The goal of the CRA is to promote increased tax revenue for our properties in the area, promote affordable housing, and economic development for the city of Revere Beach. And this proposed project will increase the city's tax revenue by approximately $150,000 per year. It also includes estimated construction of approximately $9 million, and it will redevelop long vacant properties along the Broadway corridor consistent with the downtown development regulations. The CRA plan provides the following strategies for the corridor: to improve the look, feel, and investment potential of Broadway, to create jobs, to improve opportunities for attracting marine-related business. Development of the marine industries is recommended to include buildings that along the Broadway corridor would match the urban design principles, which would provide that the building is pulled up close to the street with enhanced sidewalks. And the project meets these particular strategies of the CRA plan. At the request of the CRA, the project has incorporated a 30-foot wide landscape buffer that would include a new meandering sidewalk and landscaping along Avenue E. The project is located on the entire block in this area, so it extends not only along Broadway, but goes all the way over to Avenue E. We had asked that the side of the project that is adjacent to Avenue E, which is directly across the street from the Phase 2 townhome project that was just presented, that they provide this linear type park with the sidewalk, enhanced landscaping, and they've also located their drainage area adjacent to that, which actually moves the project about 55 feet away from Avenue E. And then they would include a stucco finished decorative wall to separate the project from the Avenue E corridor. The CRA plan outlines the strategy of locating future flex industrial buildings to the south of this project. It's the Ports of Palm Beach transition area. That area is also, if you go further west along 11th Street, that area does have some neighborhoods, some of which we were discussing the future possibilities for. So the Port of Palm Beach transition area does allow the industrial flex type use, but it requires that any project that's built has either an office or a retail frontage to ensure that whatever is built is compatible. At the Planning and Zoning Board, there were some comments made from some single-family homeowners who were in this area who are concerned about development, but that area is actually the Port of Palm Beach transition area in the CRA plan. The staff is recommending that the board provide comments to the City Council and vote to recommend approval of the project, finding that it's consistent with the goals and strategies of the Community Redevelopment Plan. We are all currently also in the process of updating our CRA plan. And I want to just briefly touch on that because the plan that was adopted in 2011 really recognized the need to find uses to redevelop Broadway, to encourage economic development and grow the job base of the existing marine uses that are located in the corridor. And we feel that that is largely on the verge of being achieved, is to attracting that economic development node of marine-related uses. So we are working on eliminating the Marine District North sub-district in our new plan to reduce the focus on marine-related uses going forward, since we feel that we're just about to achieve that goal. I know this project has been in the development review process for at least a year, I believe. So they were submitted some time ago. But I just did want to mention that we feel that the future projects in the corridor, we would like to steer them towards the strategies of mixed-use development, which would mean buildings that incorporate commercial offices, retail, or mid-rise residential projects and mid-rise commercial. So that we believe is the future. But the current plan did attempt to try and achieve more economic development from jobs and to build upon the existing marine industry that we already had. And I think that we've, with this final project, we've successfully achieved that. But I did want to mention that we are looking to move the future into more mixed-use development for the remaining parcels in the Broadway corridor. And at this time, I'll take your questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Board members?
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just a comment. I want to
Commissioner
thank you, Mr. Evans, for saying that, because I know that we will get complaints from people who say, well, how come this isn't a restaurant, or how come it's not a movie theater, or how come it's not a bowling alley? And the reason is it's in a marine industry section, and that's what it's going to be. I'm happy to know that going forward, there will be more opportunities on Broadway for other kinds of projects. But in the meanwhile, this is a good use of this property. It's right across the street from our marina. It's been sitting vacant for a very, very long time, and it'll be a nice addition to that marine industry area. And I'm hoping that as more marine industry tenants come to the city, including the ones that are currently planning future development, more development, that they collaborate with us to do workforce development so that we can increase the number of people in the city who obtain meaningful work, meaningful employment in the marine industry. And we know we've worked with the college in the past, and we'll continue to work with the high schools to make sure that happens. So I'm happy to approve this myself. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
I apologize. I forgot to mention the applicant is, of course, in the audience. And I'm available for your questions also, but they do have a presentation and would like to present their project to the board also.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Commissioner Miller Anderson, please.
I'll wait until after their presentation.
Thank you.
Right, but my question is, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner McCoy?
do we need their presentation? What we're being asked for is not based on the site plan. This is just measuring this project to see if it's consistent with the CRA plan. So, and I guess they can show us the site plan and talk about all those features, but we're certainly going to hear that again. I guess the question before us is this development consistent with the CRA's overall plan? And trust me, right, I'm already digging into the site plan, which is pretty detailed. And I was already looking at square footage, but unless there's specific questions, I'm not sure I have any desire or reason to I guess less is more. And I think the questions of being able to support this, being consistent, has already been established by Mr. Evans, unless members insist.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Miller Anderson.
Yes, I do understand your point, Mr. McCoy, but I have had, some residents that are not very happy with the project. So I do want to have them given an opportunity at this time to explain what they'll be doing and what the project is, so that, those concerns could be addressed ahead of time before the city meeting.
Any other board members? I did have a question in reference to the jobs that they will be providing, because I know Mr. Scott Evans stated that it's in line with our plan. So I want to know what kind of jobs and how many jobs are going to be created with this potential project, because as my concerns were in the agenda review, and I do want to actually go on the record. I forgot during disclosures that I did have a meeting with individuals from the organization. So if I could add that to the record as well, Ms. Shirley, just to kind of hear some of the thoughts and idea of how this is in line. So I wouldn't mind them presenting. If we can have representatives, board, if we're in line, if we can have representatives, come speak, please. On behalf of the Marine.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, council members, city manager, staff. My name is Wayne Richards, and I am here to speak on behalf of the applicant, Mariner Marine. With me, I brought a few people, Mr. Brian Terry. He'll give the presentation shortly. Our phenomenal architect, Brent Woods, and very importantly, Neil DeJesus, our Chief Operating Officer for Mariner Marine. Neil. I attended numerous charrettes 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years ago, and even before that. But I'm very glad that staff and this commission recognized that those charrettes in your comp plan called for this to be a marine-related area. And the good news is that this use is directly consistent with the green light that your comp plan put out there. It said, hey, we want these uses along the Broadway corridor. So the good news is my client purchased an existing building, business has greatly improved it, and now looks to expand just to the south on vacant, currently derelict land. So you're going to see a fantastic presentation of how we are growing and relocating an existing business in your city. Many people will be employed there, and this plan is directly consistent with your comp plan. Having said that, Mr. Terry, please come forward. Brian Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Good evening, Chairman, Council, Board. Pleasure to be here this evening. I will try to walk you through try to keep it a fairly brief presentation. Regarding this application, as mentioned, there are multiple applications that will be coming in front of City Council for consideration, of which the replat, rezoning, and site plan. But really to kind of dive into the details, again, this is a relocation of an existing business. You have a dealership, South Florida Yachts and Mariner Marine, that have been in operation within the city limits for approximately 20 years, about 2 blocks north. So this is an opportunity then for them to expand their boat dealership, the brands that they represent and they sell within the community, and certainly a significant aesthetic and visual upgrade for the facility that they'll be operating. This is the existing boat dealership, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, again, is a couple blocks north. The site, as you understand it, is surrounded by the port properties that are on the east side, as well as the port owns the majority of the parcels on our south boundary. We have the residential community that's there to our west, and then obviously the development plans that were just presented and discussed to our west. I'll skip past this. This is really more important for the council, but this is related to the plat and the consolidation, the abandonment that's going to occur. These are unimproved roadways, right-of-ways that exist that will be a part of the application and what one that's heard in front of council. Again, the rezoning component, I'm going to skip past that because we really want to focus to the site plan itself. Again, this is the proposed plan. We did work with your staff for a significant amount of time to come up with a design plan that we thought was sensitive to, the community and the expectations and development that we understand is occurring around this, as well as the perception and what the requirements are for the CRA district and the Broadway corridor. So again, placing the where's the pointer on here? Okay, sorry, I can't find the pointer. Either way, the building obviously, as we mentioned, is brought up to the front for the primary. Yeah, that one doesn't have one. Thank you. The building, again, the showroom has been brought to the front to really present, again, the retail component to the operation. This is a 8:30 to 5:30 business, and we've really kind of designed it in a manner to where the public space, the public entrance, the public facing component to this building is focused on the south side of the access. Again, this is more I'd say the access into the residential community to the west. The business side, the maintenance side is really on the north side, again, adjacent to the gas station that's adjacent to us, to where access comes in from the north side. I think I have a quick graphic that kind of represents this. Basically, as an idea, you can see the red identifies really, and this is kind of a response and information that came through out of PZAB. The questions that were being asked is how do people access the site? How do you work through this development parcel. So access will come in along Broadway, come into the gates in this location. This entire property is going to be gated and secured. Come into the site here. The maintenance operation exists in the service component really happens in this portion of the building, which is interior space. Has garage doors that open and close to accommodate for the entrance into the boats. They can then be serviced on either side of this red line in the interior space. There is a zone that's right here where there are outdoor covered spaces. Really, this is located to prepare the boats for service. And again, think of service. This is not the same situation as you may see at other places. There is no painting going on. There's no heavy chemical work. There's no whole repair work happening here. Really, this is, again, this is a boat dealership. It's no different than if you purchase a car at a dealership and you need to go have the oil changed and some of the basic services done. There's warranty work that gets done at these locations, and that's what that function is for. On the western side, we do have a boat storage area. I should say it's really for new boat inventory, right? So you're going to store in your new boats when they're coming to the site. You want to have a location to hold those boats. Those would just be sitting here as your new boat inventory. As Mr. Evans mentioned, we did locate our retention area along the western side. So we have approximately 25-foot width of retention area, and then a 30-foot wide greenway. Again, this is something that we had close conversations with the staff in the initial design side. This really creates a beautiful front yard, really, in a public park, dog walk that will only be a benefit to the development that's being pursued on the western side of Avenue E.
If you could go back to that rendering.
Sure.
Just for clarity and for visual, the 50-foot buffer from the residential, there's actually as you said earlier, a 6-foot wall in between, in the middle, behind where the trees are located on the actual map. If you could use your pointer and go to the map for me.
You know, I think I had something that's a little bit easier to see that with.
So, yeah,
that
right
was
there.
it. That was
Yeah,
it
that was
right
it.
there.
Go back.
Trying. There it is.
So that red line in between the grassy retention and the landscaping, possible Calusa, is going to be a 6-foot wall.
Exactly. And this was there was originally a fence here. We heard some community feedback. I think that, you know, this is a very sensitive way to do it. We can add the 6-foot wall along this entire length, which 6 foot is the maximum height that we're allowed to put by code in a commercial situation like this. But then what we would like to do, and what we provided new plans to the community development, or to Development Services Department, we want to add a Clusia hedge that will run essentially from this gate location around the west side and then around the south side up to here. Again, that Clusia hedge can then be maintained at a higher height than even the 6 foot, which is really going to provide for that privacy and sense of enclosure for this portion, and really limit noise, sound, lights, anything that could be of concern to the adjacent neighbors.
So that 30-foot grass area behind the wall is going to be just for more sound and just for more of a buffer for residents, but it'll be on the inside of the parcel. So there'll be no parking there. That'll just be a grass retention area.
That's just simply a grass retention area. It's depressed. And so really what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that there's a clear delineation, really the public access, the public side of the site being exterior to the wall. Again, there's a nice sidewalk, seating areas, dog station, benches along this corridor, the wall, and then interior to that is additional green space separating any of the activities on the site away from Avenue E.
And that's a grassy retention.
It'd be a grass retention area.
The
correct.
wall couldn't be moved closer to the parcel. I know we addressed that earlier, but I wasn't sure. I know you said something about it being a sloped wall.
Well, this retention area is going to have basically a V.
The retention will have a slope.
It's going to have a V profile, so it's
Understood.
going to have a pretty quick drop off. It's something that typically we wouldn't want to have accessible for, kids, children, dogs. So we would prefer to keep that interior to the wall space.
And to the east, that parcel where it says parking lot and outdoor boat storage. To the east, I'm sorry, all the way to the east, all the way, other side, off of your lot. Mr. Scott Evans, that parcel, is that where, that's where the towers that we approved for Marina Phase 2 development are gonna be going?
Starting with where the language says parking lot and outdoor board, that,
So that'll be Phase 2, the towers, the market rate towers.
that is the affordable
That's the
tax
affordable
credit
component.
piece, yes.
Got it. And then on the north of that will be the market rate.
Yes, north of where it says monument sign.
Understood. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, if you, I'm sorry, if you wanted to continue.
And we have Brent Wood, again, the architect, and we can speak to the building itself.
Mr. Chair.
I'm not sure my name
Just-
Commissioner
just
Botel,
while
go
we're
ahead.
here, those white things that look like garages, they're set back from, am I right? I mean, it's hard to visualize that, but I think what I'm seeing is that the building that's on Broadway is that darker building and the others are set back from it. Okay,
That's right. This is dark blue
Yeah,
portion.
okay, yeah.
And this portion is set back.
okay.
Brent would like me to get back to the rendering at the beginning, so I'm going to back up to that location.
Oh, Mr. Chair, one other question.
Commissioner Botel, go ahead.
The existing building, the existing business, is that going to stay where it is in addition to this new location, or is it going to close where it is? What's the relationship between the existing business that's been there for 20 years and this property?
Neil DeJesus is going to step in for a second and speak to that.
Good evening, Chair, members, city staff. Neil DeJesus, Chief Operating Officer. We intend to sell those properties once we open this business.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Botel.
Good evening, council members and staff. My name's Brent Wood. I'm the architect for the project. I just have a few points I'll touch on. I, again, try to keep it brief for you. But as you mentioned, the building does step back. And so what you're seeing here is a human eye level view from Broadway, looking slightly to the south, but mostly to the west. So the intent is this is a boat sales and service facility. And so in being consistent with the code, we felt it was, we wanted to present the showroom to Broadway for a few reasons. One is, you know, there's some frontage requirements. It's going to be the nicest and most visibly necessary to be connected to Broadway for the boat sales. But we felt like that was our good frontage opportunity. And the building steps back to the north and to the west for the service area, which might not be so attractive. So Broadway's fronted by the sales showroom and the boat display, and the more utilitarian parts of the building are sort of pushed away. And so there's a few things that we're doing with the building. The code asks for articulation. The code asks for visual access. And we felt, again, Broadway is the main road. So the visual access that we've set up through the tower element, through the stepping of the building, through the changing of materials, and the visibility in and out of the showroom that it presents from the north and south for vehicular travel and pedestrian travel from Broadway. Building height is 2 stories. Again, also a code requirement. Really, those are the talking points. What we wanted to do is present a building that we felt was attractive, speaks to boat sales and showroom, and is an enhancement to the community. Those are all the points I have, unless you have questions for me.
Board members?
No, one of the questions I did have was about the servicing, and I think you did cover that. My concern was about what type of servicing was going to take place there. You said there's no chemicals, no painting, no smells of any kind should be coming through there, right?
That's correct. And again, all the service work is being done in the kind of the internal garage space that's on the backside of the building. We did confirm that the spaces that are exterior are really for the boat staging, for those that are about to go into service, but the work is not going to happen outside anyway. Again, it's being indoors. It's your typical maintenance that you would have on a new boat warranty work. You're coming in for your 100-hour service. You need to have the oil change. You need to have the electronics tweaked, whatever that may be specific to the boat that you purchased. But yeah, this is not heavy mechanical work that's occurring or whole work that would cause some of those concerns.
And I'm glad that you did mention that, Mr. Scott Evans, because about us looking at changing, because the main thing about it is it's getting oversaturated in that area. And although that was, what the plan called for, I think we've kind of changed our vision at this point and would like to see other things there. I understand they have site control, they've purchased it. I mean, it's nothing we can do in terms of that. But I did want to make sure that on the west side of the property along the Avenue E, my concern was about the new development, and I say the word name wrong all the time, but you all know what I'm talking about. Having people coming in there and wanting to purchase new homes, and obviously the development across the street on the east side of Broadway, having to take a look at another marina business. But, I appreciate the setbacks, the 30, 50 feet that's away from the E Avenue area. I understand it goes along with our comp plan, but I think it was important for you all to present because we do have some residents that are in the area that do have homes, and they're concerned about, more marine businesses coming into the area. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Botta.
a question about the existing business and that property. How is that property zoned, Mr. Evans? I'm looking to the future to see when they sell it to somebody, what could it become?
The existing business is zone downtown core, which is in the downtown
So
development
it could
district.
become the kinds of things that people want to see different from marine industry.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I do have one other thing.
Sorry?
I said I do have one other thing.
Oh, absolutely. Commissioner Miller Anderson.
I actually travel that street where you all are currently now every day. And it's not just your property, but the one to the south. With the traffic that comes through there, sometimes when those boats are being pulled in and out, that road is blocked. Is that going to happen on the 12th Street, 11th Street, right? Yeah, 11th Street area? When you're bringing the boats in from 12th Street or 11th? 12th Street. So, because there are sometimes when the boats are being pulled in, you have to take another way. You may sit there for a few minutes, but it's just totally blocked. Is there some plan in place to make sure we're not blocking the roads?
Right. So actually, I was just going to try to get to the graphic here so it can be visualized a little bit better. So what we did do, so there's going to be, again, a lot of the access when the boats are being trailered to the property would be coming Broadway on to 12th and then entering in this location. One of the unique things about this is we moved that gate access point significantly further west than where that exists on the current property. I think that what you probably experience is there's that access and that gate is so near the intersection of Broadway that it can quickly back up. So we've moved that point further west to really allow for a little bit longer stacking as those boats and trailers come in. Again, this is not the same scale as maybe some of the other dealerships that you see. The typical boat size average from 24 to 32 feet for this dealership. They have a few larger, but this is definitely on the smaller side of a boat that will be coming in this location. The intention is that this gate remains open during all business hours. So as you're coming in, you can come in and you'll be able to bring your boat and pull in. They do try to schedule, obviously, service times and boat deliveries and or service calls so that they're spread out and they can be immediately brought in. They don't want their clientele sitting and waiting to get onto the property. And then this has a significantly longer queue. Obviously, as you can tell, this was created purposefully to make sure that there can be boats and trailers if they need to back up, if there's need to get into a space, that they're not just sitting right here in this location, nowhere to go. And that's a difference between the existing operation and what's being proposed today. That's a little bit of a, fit and operate how you can on the property that exists there today, where this is being specifically designed for this operation. So it's different.
So when they're turning in, they'll be able, it's wide enough where they're able to turn in and not have to, back
Right,
up, do like a 10-point turn.
Correct.
Because that's what occurs on that, at the current property, a lot of times. And that's what takes up the time and the blocking of the street.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, board members. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
There's no public comment cards.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
Any other questions from the board?
Do you want a motion? Do you want a motion?
Please, Mr. Evans, the motion that you want is to,
Move to recommend approval of the project to the city council.
Second.
motion been made and properly second. Discussion?
Yes,
Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
that's not actually what's before us. We have to determine that it's consistent with the CRA's plan, not a recommendation to the city council. Because regardless of whether or not we define it as being
Make a
consistent.
recommendation, make a motion to recommend approval of the project, to the city, finding that the project is consistent with the goals and strategies of the CRA plan, community development plan.
Motion been made and properly second. Discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy,
Yes.
Chair Pro Temp Lanier,
No.
Chair Lawson.
Yes.
That vote passes, with Commissioner, Chair Pro Temp Lanier dissenting, 4-5. I'm sorry, 4-1.
Thank you. 7B?
Resolution number 2023-16 of the Board of Commissioners of the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, authorizing the execution of the contract for professional architectural services with Styles Architectural Group to provide design services for Found Care Incubator Space located at 3501 Broadway, Riviera Beach, Florida, in the amount not to exceed $93,022 plus 10% contingency for a total of $102,324.20, directing and authorizing the chairperson and executive director to take such action as shall be necessary and consistent to carry out the intent and desire of the agency, providing an effective date. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed. Mr. Chair, we have no comment cards.
Motion to approve resolution number 2023-16.
Second.
Motion been made and properly second. Mr. Evans?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, at this time, I'll ask for the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Scott Evans, to make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, Mr. Chair and Board. This request is a resolution which would approve a contract with the Styles Architectural Group. And it's for them to design the incubator spaces, which are located on the east side of the Found Care Medical Center project, which is proposed at 3501 Broadway. The City of Riviera Beach has leased the property to the Found Care Incorporated for a period of 99 years for the express purpose of building a community health center. And Found Care has agreed to provide 5,000 square feet within the building for use as a business incubator by the Riviera Beach CRA. The design and build out of the spaces, including permits, renovation costs, and changes that may occur to the space over time, will be the sole responsibility of the Riviera Beach CRA. The CRA board will also be responsible for selecting the individual business incubators that move into the building, both when it opens and over time. The incubator space is located on the east side of the building, which fronts along the Broadway corridor, which gives it excellent visibility for those new businesses to be located. And Styles Architectural Group is the architect of record for the entire Found Care development project. On behalf of the CRA, they will design incubator spaces for the 5,000 square feet space. The proposed contract with Styles Architectural Group would be for an amount not to exceed $102,324. This would also include additional design services to assist the businesses that are selected by the board to be incubators to help design the final layout as they plan to move in and occupy the space. The architect will also assist us with the bidding process. Once they've completed those design plans and they've received this board's approval for them, they will help us bid out those for the construction. They will also assist us through the construction process for any additional drawings or changes that may be needed as we proceed through construction, including certificate of substantial completion. With that, I'll pause now. One more thing I will add is we're looking to develop that incubator program. We're looking to market it and let the public know that this opportunity is coming very soon. The September we've targeted for getting the word out that this is coming, and then followed up by bringing the application process that's proposed to find those incubators to the board in October. And once the board has approved that process, then we would like to issue it at the end of October so that the selection process for those incubators can begin quickly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Board members, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
There are no public comment cards.
Thank you. Board members? So my only comments for this board is I spoke with the staff and I spoke with Mr. Jonathan Evans. My understanding was that when we approved this project that we weren't going to have any cost for the project. But Mr. Evans, Scott Evans, what's going to be the total cost for the build out of this incubator space?
We project the total build out would be approximately 1.4 million.
So the language that, from my understanding, that we had in the approval was that the incubator space would be provided and built out by the Found Care organization. But now we're being asked to pay 102,324, and then the build out cost will cost us about 1.4. So what we did is we gave the land to Found Care, and we're also paying for the build out and the architectural work of the incubator space.
Yes. Okay. And for the construction and design.
Okay. Board, I can't support this item. I came on board with Found Care because this was the pleasure of the board, but now I'm seeing that the cost is coming now upon us because take in mind that this is just the architectural work. We will have to spend $1.4 million to build out space after we gave a $2 million piece of land to Found Care, in addition to the fact that that was before we changed the density on that parcel of land. So, board, I cannot support this item here, and when it comes before the city council, I won't be able to support it either. Commissioners, any other comments? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner McCoy.
Very interesting. Let's talk about that for a minute. Mr. Evans, what was that amount? 1.4.
1.4 million.
Is that's our cost to build out 2 incubator spaces?
That's the projected, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Please, Mr. Evans, go ahead.
That's the projected cost to build out those spaces for the projected tenants. That amount could be reduced depending on the final amount that the board decides to charge to the business incubators applicants, but that's the cost. Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead. Well, Councilman, I'm sorry, Commissioner McCoy, you finished?
I had a couple other questions, but Mr. Evans can go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Evans.
To add additional comments, that is the projected, like Mr. Evans said, that's the projected cost for the space. The space is going to be built to basically be a box. And the monies that the CRA would facilitate would be monies to assist those tenants that can be in that particular space. We're projecting anywhere from 2 to 4 tenants can be in that space. So if there is a situation whereby the board wants to change the types of entities that are in there, if it's more of a professional office, if it's more of a passive use, if it's a sandwich shop that doesn't need the grease trap and the like. There are things that will change what the amount, but they are providing the space that is going to give you that white box. And then and Mr. Evans, correct me if I'm wrong, the additional monies was to assist in helping those particular applicants that made it successful through the process as it relates to the design and then the construction of the space for those incubator businesses. So if there is a policy decision that the board says, if you are selected, you need to have capital in hand to be able to build those spaces out, that's a public policy decision that is well within the scope of this board. But that's what we project, assuming that we're going to help with the operations, getting them started.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner McCoy, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, Jonathan Evans, thank you for bringing that back to us. Few things. So I do recall specifically us being told that we're going to be provided with the shell, and I expected to have some sort of. Well, let's ask this first question. Remind me of how long that lease is with the incubator space with Found Care. Is that in perpetuity?
That's in perpetuity, yes, sir.
Okay, so Mr. Scott Evans, do you recall what the CRA's contribution amount was to the incubator space at the 2700 block or 2600 block of Broadway for the smoothie restaurant, Smoothie Me? I'm sure it had to be about 100,000.
Mr. Chair?
Please, Ms. Evans.
Yes, our commitment was to complete the building, first of all, the infrastructure, and bring it up to code, and then to provide a grant. And I believe the specific amount was in the area of about 40,000. But that was for 500 square feet, of course, which is about 10% of this project.
Okay, so, but 40,000 was the leasehold improvements for this tenant, but because I'm sure we did a lot more work on that building.
We did. That was the leasehold improvements that we knew that the tenant would be required to do.
And this is just the architectural phase. Do they have some conceptual drawings of what that looks like now? Like, so like, obviously, I think we're already committed at this point, especially for the architecture services, since Styles is already doing the work for the project. But, you know, before we get too far down the line, I think we need to make sure that we properly budget for that, because, you know, what does $1 million look like? Is that for 2 spaces or 4 spaces? You know, we need to have these conversations now, because, you know, if we have to now put this over a 2-year period, because seemingly I don't know that we're going to have somebody in there to open up the same time Found Care does. But, you know, I understand the chairperson's pause with it, but, you know, I think that's almost routine. I don't know where you move at it anywhere, opening a business without having some, you know, improvements. And that's no different than the work that I've actually had the opportunity to participate with our development partner that's doing Berkeley Landing with the 2 incubator spaces there. They've actually bought the prospective lessees for the live workspace to be a part of that construction project, so that they can build out, if there was to be a salon, they can do the plumbing and they can do the electrical work that's associated with it. So I can imagine that there's going to be those initial costs that's going to be incurred during construction. So I hope that's the budget, and certainly we can kind of, you know, massage that number a little bit. But I certainly didn't have the expectation that they were just going to give us a complete, you know, ready to turn on the lights and ready to operate business, you know, space without any contribution from the CRA. So I just don't want this to, you know, we found out, you know, now we're in 2023, when this opens up in 25, now that number's at $2.5 million that we're needing to contribute, because that's going to be a real issue. And I don't think, you know, any commissioner went into this expecting to have that kind of capital outlay for a piece of property that we're only leasing. Probably, is it 10% of the space? Would you say that we have about 10%?
Mr. Chair?
Please, Mr. Scott Evans.
Yes, they're building a total of 20,000 square feet, so we're getting 25% of the available space.
So 10%. I'm sorry, those numbers again?
Yeah, they're building 20,000 square feet, so and they're giving us 5,000.
Okay, so we're getting a quarter.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Botel.
thank you. At what point did we not know in the very beginning of this process that we were going to have to build out this space, or was there an assumption that they were going to do it for us? I don't remember. Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
They were going to provide us a shell. So, and so the shell is just the basic box. We're providing for the other elements associated with that. So if, let's just say it is professional offices, then that monies would be a fraction of what we would need to do if we wanted to assist in helping those particular businesses. We also have to make sure that those incubator businesses are ready to open up when Found Care opens up, because one of the things they've communicated to us is they don't want a situation where they're providing service and that frontage that they have on Broadway is not activated and there's contractors still moving in there. So we're pairing up with them to ensure that when they open their facility, that is the first day of operation, if not before, for those incubators. So the 1.4, Mr. Evans, is worst case scenario for the build out that we're projecting and the potential uses that may be in there. And Scott, if you can provide, or Ms. Jenkins can provide, what are the tenant mix that we are associating with that $1.4 million? Because there may be a public policy discussion that the board, and for the board's edification, we are carrying this money in your budget that you will be hearing from staff. So there's monies that are budgeted to the tune of $1.4 million. But it's important to find the tenant mix that the board is comfortable with. But it gave us a broad variety because you're going to accept proposals, and it gives you the flexibility to, if it's a professional office, and let's say it's a pediatrician, or it's a situation where it's a sit-down sandwich shop, it gives you that flexibility. But Scott, if you want to share with the board kind of conceptually what we've talked about.
Yes, we did look at some potential uses of the site so that we could come up with some construction estimates for to be able to provide the board that background info. We had looked at the optimum way to use the 5,000 square feet would be to create 2 retail or office spaces, which could share the main north entrance, and then they could also share bathrooms. And those could either be retail or an office type use or medical office type use, depending on what the board's final selection was. And we also looked at taking the other half of the space, which is about 2,500 square feet, and utilizing that for a type of food service operation. It could actually be either multiple food services operating around a central service and eating area. But it would also include its own bathrooms. So it would be 1 or 2 food service businesses, and then 2 separate retail or medical office or general office. So it's about 2 to 4, about 3 to 4 potential occupants under that configuration.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Botel, go ahead.
Thank you. So, but we refer to these as incubator spaces. Have we thought through the process by which we select, and how much time will they each have there? When will we decide that they've had enough time to incubate and now they're ready to go hatch a business on their own? Have we thought through that?
Yes, we looked at what some other places are doing. We're also working with the city's economic development manager to assist us in that. And Anita Jenkins will be taking the lead on finding the incubator process. We're looking at somewhere between 3 to 5 years, likely towards the 5 years, since depending on what the amount the board elects to require as an upfront investment from those businesses, since obviously they need to get some return on their investment, depending on how much is required by them to build out, buy the equipment, move into this space. And we're proposing to bring that complete process, the whole application process, to the board at our October meeting. And that would include the rules for evaluation and the process we propose to follow to market and select those individual businesses.
So follow up, Mr. Chair. So if we didn't do that, if we voted down this expenditure of $93,000 for the architectural services, and we didn't finish this, what would happen? They would sit there and we would have to wait for somebody to come along and say, okay, I raise my hand, I finish it, I do the work. I mean, how would that work if we didn't do it?
I think we'd eventually be not in compliance with our lease agreement with Found Care.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Botel. Board members? Mr. Scott Evans, in regards to this architectural design, what is Styles Architect going to be designed once we approve this resolution? What are they designing?
The design will ultimately be approved by this board. So we'll begin with like a 10% design package, which is like good concepts. And we'll bring that before the board right about the same time as you elect to proceed with the application process. So, and then once they get your feedback, they'll then move those plans along to about the 40% stage. And hopefully, we're hoping by the time the plans are about 40%, we'll have selected the applicants to move into those spaces. At the conceptual, we sort of know what we're looking for in those spaces, but we could still make some changes. So the design process will hopefully proceed as you know. We'll start immediately and then be proceeding simultaneously with the process of selecting those applicants. But I think that we'll be looking for some key board feedback in October when you look at that process, because we may guide the board may wish to guide the type of applicants that apply for the different spaces.
And the incubator process, application process will be presented in October to us.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Real quick question, just as a reminder, how large is this parcel of land?
This, I believe it's 2.1 or 2.3 acres.
2.3 acres. Okay. The height density on this on Found Care is 2 stories, correct? And we're going to be on the first story with the incubator.
Yes, the incubator will be only on the first story. They will have office uses on the second floor above the incubators.
So this incubator will be at 5,000 square feet first story. And they will use the remaining 15,000 square feet for the Found Care parcel within a two-story building.
Yes, so each floor is 10,000.
Okay. And possibly ideas that we've looked at, which will be presented hopefully in October. We're looking at 2,500 for possibly a food vendor, and then maybe split the other 2,500 between 2 smaller vendors. Just some ideas that have been thrown out.
Yes, that's the concept.
Concepts. Excellent. Last, does this fall in the IC PUD?
The properties in the downtown district, I think it's currently downtown general. Because it's in the CRA, the property would be eligible to become an IHC PUD.
Okay, so it is eligible. Got it. All right, those are just some general questions. Thank you. Board members? Okay. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner McCoy?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Lanier?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
No.
That vote passes 4-1 with Chair Lawson dissenting.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, thank you so much for the presentation, sir.
Thank you.
7C has been moved to consent. 7D was removed. 7E moved to consent. And 7F, Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair.
I have to read into the, I have to read it in.
I'm sorry?
I have to read it in.
Oh, well, before we do go into 7F, do we have any public comments?
We do. We have 4 public comment cards.
Let's go ahead and take public comments. Comments from the public begin at 7:30 unless there's no further business of the City Council, which in the event it will begin sooner. Please be reminded the CRA Board of Commissioners has adopted the rules of decorum governing public comment during official meetings, which is posted at the front desk. In order to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the Commissioner Chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, or from the building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly.
David Biondo, followed by Margaret Shepard.
Good evening, Board. How are you? Residents, another full house I can see. Basically, a couple of things I know I missed the beginning of the meeting and things like that, but we like to throw that term up there, affordable housing. And I'm not really hearing anything about prices. I'm not hearing, for instance, I did read the agenda earlier online and saw that 350 to 500,000, and that might be affordable for some people, I guess. But the thing is also, in addition to that, no one's talking about, they're talking about clubhouses and stuff. So I'm assuming there's going to be some monthly fees associated with it too, that they're not addressing either. So when you start tacking that kind of thing on there, it does become affordable for most everybody. I know that we'll talk about the elderly housing in a minute. Anyways, I also wanted to kind of mention, as residents, with the direction the city is going on, I'd like to hear from council more as to why they vote the way they do. It would give me a little bit more of seeing where they're coming from. I do hear your questions and some of, to the people and things like that, and take that into consideration. But when somebody says no or yay or nay, it's not really enough. I'd like to hear a little bit more as to what made you make that vote. If that's possible. Also, I know that one of the things that were removed was for the youth golf and things like that. I wondered, I'm just throwing it out there, has anybody considered the Lone Woods golf area for that kind of facility? Because I think that would be absolutely wonderful for them, for the kids. And that's what, as a family man, I'm really looking forward to doing whatever we can for our youth, our city youth. Other than that, that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment, sir.
Margaret Shepard, followed by Delcia Brooks Hamilton.
Welcome, Ms. Shepard.
Welcome, Mr. Chair, and to all the residents. And first, Mr. Chair, I want to say to you, I give you an open apology on my behavior last week. I think you deserve it. The Bible speaks of having a good name. My parents always instill in me, make sure that your last name always stay clear and free. I think I come from a very prominent family that made their bones here in Riviera Beach. And I feel like I'm taking a lot of my cousin Clara King Williams' persona of taking care of the senior citizens. I'm going to come back during the city council because I think I need to talk a little bit more about having the good name. I'm here today because I'm very excited of the building of the city of Riviera Beach. And I'm looking forward to us just moving forward, breaking ground. I was really happy to hear you talk about the Riviera Beach Housing Authority, because if nothing else, John Hurt has done nothing but move that project forward with getting seniors into proper housing. Also, I'm so glad that Ms. Delcia Brooks Hamilton is here, and I'm so excited about her talking about her restaurant. That's what we've been asking about, a restaurant that we can go to with our families to sit down and have a decent meal. I was kind of kidding with her about nice white tablecloths and linens like we did in the old days, nice silver. So we're moving forward, and I hope that we take things under consideration and start breaking ground. It's good to talk about it, but are we really doing anything about it? When they come here and they say that they want to build, and I don't know, it took them a couple of years, I guess, to get everything together to build. The houses, the apartments, I'm excited about it because people are going to come to Riviera Beach. And we want to be on our best behavior to make sure they come and have a very nice experience. Other than putting in the news that they're killing each other up. We have a good city, and I'm very proud of it. And wherever I go, I talk about the city of Riviera Beach. And Mr. Chair, once again, to each and every one, I will come back and talk a little bit more about having a good name, making sure that people recognize who you are. And to the Lindsay Davis, I thank them. They were so kind to me when I got there the other day. All the text messages I got, everybody that came to my house to make sure I was okay. I want to say to you all, thank you very much. I want to make sure I don't disappoint you. I know I'm a public figure. I'm not one that make really the decisions, but I do make sure that I convey to this board how this city should conduct itself, especially with the seniors. And with that, I thank you very much. Once again, Mr. Chair, I'm so sorry. I appreciate your reaching out to me.
Ms. Shepherd, we love you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, sir.
Delcia Brooks Hamilton, followed by Evelyn Harris Clark.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Delcia Brooks Hamilton, owner and CEO of Pangea Grill. Good evening, Mr. Chair, the mayor, commissioners, and city manager. I am really excited to be here. I've been traveling. I do own another restaurant in Nicaragua on the beach, so I've been traveling, making sure that everything is working in operational order. So the reason I'm here is because I have been in negotiation with APD Solution in reference to Pangea Grill on the Marina. I'm really excited to the fact that I'm working with him and they have actually decided to work with me. Now, I have been attending these meetings since 2012, 13. So my persistence and determination has paid off because, I have put in so much time and effort, and it's my determination that has gotten me to this point. So I am really excited to see that you guys, have decided to move this project forward, because it's about time that the people of Riviera Beach have a place where they can actually spend their money and not having to go to the surrounding communities. So I am really excited to see that, I'm going to move forward. I am ready. I do have the funding. I'm working on my financials currently. So I just want to thank you for deciding to move the project forward, because it's long overdue. And I just want to say thank you. And basically, I wanted to speak about this, but I guess it's off the table tonight. But in any event, so I just want to thank you guys for doing a great job to move the project forward. It's long overdue. So Riviera Beach can now participate in getting some better dollars coming down from the federal government. So I want to thank you again.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Evelyn Harris Clark.
Welcome, Ms. Clark.
Yes, good evening, council. Good evening, staff. I was actually at home cleaning house, listening to the meeting here, and I had to get myself together and run over here very quickly. And I wanted to have an opportunity to speak to you before the vote on the last project of the Marina project. I've had a lot of conversations with staff, members of city council over the past couple of months about this project. I also had conversations with residents, how they felt about the project. I'm the only homeowner that will be directly impacted by the marina that's going to be built on 11th Street. And the other person is an absentee landlord, but she was present at P&Z, and one other resident who cares about that neighborhood who was present too. You've already passed your vote. With that particular neighborhood, yes, CRA has the projects that they have in phase 1, 2, and 3. And then we got the Marina project that the folks just talked about. Across the street, another marine business has bought the opposite side of them, and the neighbors were feeling at that time encroached upon and squeezed upon by many of the commercial businesses that are between Broadway and 11th street. But the only thing I can say now, because that you've passed your vote, I had hoped that city council, and I don't know if you, not council, but CRA council, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at the planning and zoning meeting. It was a 3-2 vote that board struggled a lot with the decision that they came to. But the bottom line is you've already voted. And at this point, I'm going to work directly with the developer because I presented conditions for the planning and zoning board to consider to put in their, what's the word I want to say, to put in their, to vote on. They got flustered, some of them, and they forgot to put my conditions in. That motion passed. Yeah, that's what I want to say. That motion passed without my conditions for consideration. So at this point, I'm just going to work directly with the developer so that they can get what I want. If this is going to move forward, I want to make sure that my investment, that my property is protected, and I'm just going to work closely with them. And hopefully, as they agree to, they're going to adhere to the conditions I talked about. I would have hoped that you would have seen the P&Z meeting and somebody would have referenced those conditions, but you know, that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and take care of it myself. But thank you guys. Thank you, council.
Thank you for your comments.
That is all for public comment.
Thank you. 7F.
Resolution number 2023-19 of the Board of Commissioners of the Revere Beach Community Redevelopment Agency approving a local contribution and loan in the amount of $640,000 for residents at Marina Village Project located at 190 East 13th Street, Revere Beach, Florida, from the agency to the related urban Tesro LLC, residents at Marina Village LLC, and or signs in support of an application for low-income housing tax credits to support the project, as well as funding of consistency with agency goals and objectives as adopted in the CRA plan, authorizing the chairperson and executive director to execute the agreement, providing an effective date. The acceptance of public comment cards are now closed. Mr. Chair, we have one comment card.
Motion to approve resolution number 2023-19.
Motion been made. Second. Mr. Evans? And before we do go on, Mr. Jonathan Evans, if you can address any of the public comments after this item has been disposed of, that you have any feedback from? Just as a reminder, I just forgot to let us jump into that, but go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, at this time, if I can have the Director of Neighborhood Services, Ms. Anita Jenkins, to make this presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Chairs and Commissioners, for the opportunity to present the local match item for the residences at Marina Village. This is the formal request before you all to move forward this project that was approved on the city and CRA side back in May for a local match contribution as well as additional grant funds. Staff is requesting that you approve the resolution to enable the developers to apply for the next round of low-income housing tax credits. And this is pursuant to a negotiated agreement with the CRA for $1.5 million for this development, of which 640,000 or thereabouts is contemplated for the local match, which is a threshold requirement for applying for tax credits. The residences at Marina Village is an important component of the CRA's Marina Village Master Plan. The developers are appearing virtually, and if they are allowed to briefly present their proposal, they are prepared to do that. This project contains 120 units of elderly affordable housing in a 7-story building. The owners would be the residences at Marina Village LLC, and the developers are Related Urban/Terzale LLC. The project manager would be Related Urban. The projected construction sources for residences at Marina Village total $37,489,688. Of this, 25 million would be in the form of a construction loan, and a large portion at 7,181,000 would be tax credit equity. The project, they've developed a concept that you'll see, and Walter, if you could put up the PowerPoint, please. We're also asking that you find this project consistent with the adopted CRA plan and that it meets the goals and objectives of the plan. This project will create new housing opportunities within close proximity to employment, shopping areas, and public transportation. Furthermore, it has strategic importance for our marina area development, and we believe it meets the strategic goal of building great neighborhoods. Just to note that the developers are also in the pre-development and planning phase for elements 1 through 7 in the Marina District area. The developers will outline the community benefits for this project, including construction and permanent jobs, as well as other elements that meet the goals of the CRA plan. The $640,000 would be budgeted in our coming fiscal year budget, and we believe that this meets the criteria for a local funding award. And just to note that if you approve it tonight, this project would come before you at the City Council on September 6th to allow them to submit an application in response to the Florida Housing Finance Corporation's RFA on September 13th. So.
Mr. Chair.
Commit-
Ms. Jenkins, did you say senior affordable housing?
Yes, elderly.
Okay, I don't recall ever having us refer to that. Oh, we're talking about the marina, the workforce housing at the marina, right? Am I in the wrong neighborhood?
Yes.
Have we referred to it as senior all along?
Ms. Jenkins?
Yes. This is the proposal that they have.
Okay.
Yes, elderly.
Okay.
So if.
I'm nothing against seniors, mind you.
Chair,
Hi,
the
this is
develop-
Tony Del Pozo with the development company. If I could maybe add some color.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Tony Del Pozo with Related Urban, and we have Andrew Vello, who's senior development director on the project. This project is the affordable elderly component of the marina redevelopment. This is not the market rate or
Of course.
market rate and high workforce
No,
component.
no, I understand that. But my question.
Okay, I just want to make sure there was no
No,
confusion.
no. I understand it's not the market rate, but I don't recall us referring to the workforce or affordable component of this whole project as necessarily exclusively for seniors. So now I understand. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Wait a minute. So for clarity's sake, the affordable component is a senior component?
Yes, sir. That is what is contemplated. And just for your information, the developers are appearing virtually, so they're able to speak to the project and the proposal.
Okay, that was never discussed by this board.
Right.
Or portrayed that it was going to be a senior component. It was an affordable
Right.
component, affordable workforce unit, but it wasn't a senior facility.
Thank you. Oh, I'm not crazy, right?
Right.
I mean, I may be crazy, but not on that.
So this is the first that we're hearing that this is going to be a senior. But I believe you said that the developers are here, so.
They're
Mr.
appearing
Del Pozo.
virtually, yes.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Andrew Vello, the senior project director has volunteered to take the lead on the presentation this evening. So I'll let Andrew jump ahead. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you all for allowing us the opportunity to present. So as Anita mentioned, residences at Marina Village is the elderly affordable phase of our redevelopment of Marina Village. What we are proposing is a 120 unit 120 unit, 7-story building. We have a rendering here, I believe on the screen. So we have an opportunity to apply for 9% tax credits at the state next month. The deadline is September 13th. And we can submit an application if we're able to obtain a local match funding contribution from the city of Riviera Beach. This was contemplated in our ground lease that was approved by this board in May of this year, and this resolution before you today is a step in that process. We're happy to provide some additional details on the project by going through the presentation slides if the board desires. I'm also happy to pause at this moment if there's any specific questions before we jump in.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Miller Anderson, go ahead.
I did want to add to the comments that has never been discussed about this being a senior facility. Now, is this the reason why that is coming up now? Is that because of the tax credits that he's applying for? Because how do we get here? Because that's not, we've never talked about that.
Right.
So our intention is to submit an application that is as competitive as possible for the pursuit of 9% tax credits at the state, which is allocated on a competitive through a competitive process. And based on our analysis of the RFA that was issued, the site in terms of the potential development plan and the financing available to us, we determined that the best application we could put forward would be an elderly affordable phase.
So we don't have any control as to what happens on that property? Because we've never had that discussion at all.
Never.
So,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mr. Evans, go ahead.
To ask a question of Ms. Jenkins and Mr. Evans with respect to the application, because we did provide local support for the Berkeley Landing project. Is there any way or situation whereby if the board wanted to say, we want an affordable product, but we don't want to have it designated for seniors housing or what have you, is that going to adversely impact the application and the viability of the application? Or does it make it more desirable because you're going after, is this a target that is needed right now in the state and those applications are viewed from a different prism?
If I may attempt to respond, and the developers can respond as well. This is in talking about tax credit projects, developers have to make a calculated approach to securing the credits because they are so competitive in nature. Florida Housing Finance Corporation releases various types of RFAs throughout the year that are targeted to various demographics, income targeting, even targeted to specific geographic areas. The RFA that they're responding to is for large counties other than Miami-Dade County. And the one for Palm Beach County is coming up on September 13th. In looking at the scoring criteria that's developed through the regulations and the requirements for the funding, there are certain goals that are set out in the process. And the ultimate goal is to have a perfect application and to be able to minimize negative impacts on an application. For instance, a developer looks for proximity to certain amenities, to a grocery store, to medical facilities, to certain transportation, to education. And the developer also has to look at what is in the surrounding area. And that goes back to, and I don't want to reopen a door, but in looking at what they're going for, and I did not have this conversation with them, they also have to consider the types of other tax credit projects within a certain distance of where this site is. And I know that the site presents certain challenges because there's been very little other development surrounding it. So I'll stop and see if the developer can provide further clarification. And my comments are from my experience and not having had a conversation with the developer.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Botel.
Thank you. While they're answering questions, I would like to know, would it have to be exclusively senior? I think maybe I'm wrong, but my thinking about that was that there might be opportunities for people to work, people who would be living there in affordable or workforce housing who would be able to work at the marina and would be right there on site and not necessarily, and I think as the senior most member of this board, if you can feel free to say things about seniors that maybe others can't. It's not that I don't want seniors to have nice housing at the marina, but it was just never contemplated, I think, by this board. So I guess that's my question. Would it have to be exclusively for seniors?
I'll let the developer respond to that, but also as they provide a response to you, if you could harken back to earlier part in the evening when we talked about having mixed income projects in the general area. But Mr. Del Pozo, if you or one of your colleagues could respond, please.
Sure, I can respond. So, and Ms. Jenkins, I think you touched on a lot of the important points about the application process. In terms of elderly, so we're all on the same page. The way Florida Housing defines it is 55 and over. So this would be a project targeting individuals ages 55 and over. And you can have no more than 20% of your project leased to people that fall under that age in order to continue to qualify as quote elderly. We in our Element 7 Gallery and Marina Village development across the street, what we're intending to build there is a combination of workforce and market rate units, where we do believe we would have the ability to provide housing for the workforce in the immediate surrounding area. I would also add that one of the considerations in going the elderly route is that the parking demand for elderly is less than in a family deal. And the Riviera Beach zoning code allows for parking reduction for senior affordable developments such as this one. And that would allow us to preserve some of the area of the Element 8 parcel for potential additional uses down the road, such as a parking facility that could serve the broader master plan. And if we're able to scroll through on the presentation, we do have a site plan that shows that. So those were, that was another consideration. That's a little further along in the PowerPoint if we keep going. Yep, right there. Right, one back. Yeah, perfect, thank you. So the way we designed it was with enough surface parking to accommodate the 120 elderly units, but you can see there an area that we carved out as we labeled future public use by others. And so the idea is we might be able to build our project on just a portion of our leased land. And so we would then be able to allow this other portion of the land to have some other use that we can all agree on, or that the CRA can do as it chooses.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Miller-Anderson.
For related, do you have any other projects that you received tax credits for where you, in more or less like a downtown area, you put the senior facilities?
Yes, we have projects in Miami-Dade County. Tony, you might be able to speak to some of them. But we have built several elderly projects and 9% projects.
Yeah, quite a few actually.
you know, we found that the elderly communities in the urban areas work very well with proximity to all the services around them.
But nothing in Palm Beach County?
I'm trying to think if we have, yes, we've done one,
Yeah, we
Georgian
worked-
Gardens.
Right, so we built Georgian Gardens, which is just off the intersection of Community Drive and Military Trail in the city of West Palm Beach. And that was pretty similar project, actually. It was 4 stories, 87 units, surface parking, and that was completed in 2020.
But not
That's
in
an
a
elderly project
downtown
that's,
area.
Very successful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Board members, any other comments?
Chair,
Commissioner Pro Temp, go ahead.
yeah, I put this off the agenda because I had some concerns about the time frame for the tax credits. I understand that it takes, you know, up to a year or 2 to be able to use these tax credits or actually get awarded them. And, you know, sometimes they may not get awarded. So what happens if they're not awarded the tax credits?
I'm sorry, I didn't
I'm
hear
actively
The que-
developing.
the last.
Pro Temp, just for clarity, you want to know what happens if they're not awarded tax credits, correct?
Correct.
If I recall, and both Mr. Evans assist me if I don't recall correctly, in the agreement that you executed with the developers, they have 2 bites at the apple. So at the next possible opportunity, they would reapply for credits.
And go ahead, Pro Temp. No, go ahead, Pro Temp. I'm sorry.
No, I understand there's 2 bites of the apple, and that's, you know, 2 to 3, 4 years, you know, with those 2 bites. But even with those 2 bites, what happens if they're not awarded the tax credits?
Based on the
I believe
agreement,
our
what
lease would
happened?
terminate and the land would
I'm
revert
sorry,
back to the.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Sorry, this is Tony Del Pozo. I believe the lease would terminate and the land would revert back to the CRA.
Okay, so then another question too is, we were talking about workforce housing and then now we're on elderly housing. I think that I have the same sentiment as the other council people, is that we've never heard anything about elderly housing for this site. So how did that come about and how is it that we didn't know until tonight about it?
Yeah, our apologies for not communicating that better to the board. It was a decision that we made based on the factors that have already been discussed. And we were just trying to do our best to get a successful application. And since we would be providing workforce along with the market rate phase component next door, we didn't think that this would be received unfavorably. Our goal is to, you know, keep this project available to local residents. And to the extent that that's not viewed favorably as an elderly deal, we can certainly revisit it and see if we could rework it otherwise.
Mr. Chair.
Pro Temp, are you
Yeah,
finished?
so I just-
Hold
oh,
on, Commissioner Botel. Pro Temp, are you finished?
Yeah, I'm finished for now.
Sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just repeat what you said, please, sir. You said you're providing market rate and workforce next door,
That was my question.
not just market rate. And I
It's high
forget.
workforce units, yes. So which really, a lot of it is close to market in that particular area.
Okay. So, and I think I heard the other gentleman say 20% of this quote of elderly senior housing could be non-senior. Is that what you said?
That is correct.
Okay, so it could be a mix of people. It's just predominantly people, and I find it amusing to refer to people as elderly if they're over 55, but I get what you're saying. So it could be, it still could be working people who happen to be over 55, right? Okay.
That's correct.
All right, I'm all right with it.
So and I guess I need that same clarity because just so that we're very clear, Mr. Tony DePozo, Element 7 is going to be high-end workforce market rate units. Are there going to be any income restricted units in the Element 7, or is it going to be all market rate?
So our goal was to put in some restrictions that would enable us to tap into certain funding sources, but again, at high workforce levels. That was, the intent of our plan.
Okay, so now here's our thought process and why the board, I'm assuming, has some pause. With this request to move forward with the tax credit application and it only being restrictive to seniors, we're going to have the parcels of land restricted to our market rate, high income earning, and our senior population, but we haven't addressed the workforce, our police officers, firefighters, and some of the people that we intended for that property. So I know that I have pause with it because my approach is that I know that we want to win the tax credit, but we also want to build out our community properly with the marina, with the restaurant, and with all the amenities. We haven't addressed any of the working class to live in that area. So those working class citizens at the 40, 60, 80 AMI would not be able to afford the market rate and may not be old enough to live in the senior facility. We definitely are addressing our housing for our seniors, and we don't want to eliminate that from that location. I guess the question was that we just never had this conversation, because if you're saying that we can incorporate some type of workforce into Element 7, then that would give us clarity to say, let's move forward with these for all of our seniors to give them the entire building, because now we know for sure that we'd have a component in Element 7 that would allow for certain units to go to AMI at 80% or 60%. So I think that, I'm not saying that, essentially we were blindsided by this direction.
Understood. This is something that we could certainly consider incorporating into Element 7, if that's the desire of the board. But we could also explore Element 8. Unfortunately, there's a little tight time frame right now. So we're trying to get this application in by September 13th. So if we think that incorporating various income levels into the market rate component, which we've done throughout South Florida, would make for a very successful project, and we'd be able to accommodate income levels consistent with those folks that you were referring to, the teachers and firefighters and policemen and things like that. So we would certainly be open to revisiting it for Element 7 if that's the desire of the board.
And just to follow up on that, I agree. I know that we're on time constraints, but even looking at Heron Estates, they've done a phenomenal job incorporating our seniors with our AMI, affordable workforce, and they integrated it perfectly. So it's just the discussion wasn't had before. So we can incorporate where we've addressed market rate, workforce, and the senior facility all at this parcel. But this is a discussion we haven't had before, and this is the first time we're hearing about it, which I'm actually completely for it if we can figure out how the towers on Element 7, because those 120 units can definitely be for our senior population if we're going to help us with the tax credits. And then we have all the doors in the market rate building going towards market rate and affordable and some type of workforce. But that's got to be built out properly. And I know that we're on a time crunch. So colleagues, this is a tough discussion that we have to have. What is the deadline for this application to be submitted?
September 30th, 13th.
I'm sorry, September what?
13th, I think. Is
So
it?
first, I think Mr. Evans had a comment.
Yeah.
Mr.
Yes.
Jonathan Evans? Yeah, September 13th.
Mr. Chair, obviously the board is having some discussions with regards to this. So I just want to proffer something that, may be amenable for the board's consideration as well as related. If they were to go forward with a workforce product as previously discussed and previously conveyed in the public discussions, and they are not successful in this iteration, obviously we would want them to be successful, and I believe they have the bandwidth and the skill set to be able to be successful with a workforce product, then could there be a default, and the second application, if they're not successful, goes to facilitate the senior element. So you try with the workforce product, which was communicated because it was discussions at this board level that you wanted to ensure that everyone had the ability to live on the marina property, especially those that are working, especially with the activation of some of the marine-based businesses and some of the other businesses, that there was a lot of discussion and a lot of desires with regards to that particular target. So if that is something that both parties are amenable, I think we could see it move the day and be able to complete the application in the prescribed time if that works within the timeline for the related group. Just an option for your consideration, Mr. Chair.
And I agree. I think it'd be a great mix, but we have to figure out what mix we want to see there. The 180 units having walking distance for our seniors to the restaurants, to the marina event space, to whatever space that we have built out over there. I think it'd be a excellent mix, but we have to see the proper mix. So if we do a component with the workforce and then it does not pass, and then they submit a second application for the senior, we still have not addressed with that the workforce component, because we're going to have our seniors with an affordable unit, and then we'll have market rate. So we won't have any doors addressed for any workforce. So I think that would be my only concern. Councilwoman Botel,
Yeah.
hold on one second. I'm sorry. Who's trying to speak?
This is Andrew Vella with Related, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Hold on one second, Adrian. Let me have Commissioner Botel had some comments, and then I'll have you go. And you had something?
Yeah, after him,
I'm
after
sorry.
Nev Evans, I had asked.
Okay, I heard.
Go ahead.
Council, all right.
Go ahead.
Let me actually have Commissioner Miller Anderson, then Commissioner Botel, then you can come in, sir. Go ahead.
So with the switch to the senior concept, does that change the type of, like before, are we looking at now doing 1-bedroom homes? Or, I mean, are we still staying with the 2 or 3 or whatever it was going to be?
Yeah, in this proposed project, we would have primarily 1-bedroom units with about 10% 2 bedrooms.
Primarily 1-bedrooms?
Yeah, 90% 1 bedrooms and 10% 2 bedroom is the plan that we have now.
So thank you.
Hold on, Commissioner Miller, you done? Commissioner Botel, go ahead.
So when Mr. Evans suggested apply for workforce, and then if that doesn't work, apply for senior, what's the time delay, though, between the first application, if it's not successful, and the second? I mean, is that another year? What's the?
It would be usually another year,
Yeah,
give
I
or
mean,
take a month or two.
I don't think we want to.
And the concern I would, if I may,
Please,
Chair,
please.
the concern I would have is we establish a process for the proposal to come to us. And we're talking about changing what was presented. And I just want to make sure that whatever is approved is a resolution that won't be challenged based on what if there's ambiguity or something. And I just ask the developers to respond.
Sure, if I may, I would say that one possibility here is, if we approve this item tonight, that there still needs to go back to City Commission before we can submit our application, and that's, I think, 2 weeks away. And perhaps in the interim, we can have a meeting to discuss this project along with Element 7 and holistically present what the various income levels that we would be targeting across the full master plan, which is over, close to 500 units. And we could present a project where Element 7 could have an 80-20 structure, as it's referred to, where 20% is targeting workforce and 80% market rate, just as an example. We'd be ready to have a conversation and a meeting about that in the next 2 weeks, and that might then, before the City Commission meeting, allow the board to feel comfortable truly, proceeding in this direction.
Yeah, Mr.
Thank you
Chair.
for that. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Botel.
Thank you. Who dictates the 20% amount that would be non-senior? Is that something that's dictated by the process of the LIHTC funding, or is that something you came up with? Who makes
Yeah,
that determination?
that's dictated by Florida Housing Finance Corporation which is the agency that allocates the tax credits.
Okay.
Thank you. And I did have a follow-up question for that. I could support that project if we assigned 80, 20, 75, 25, if we can get to about 100 units, because we were looking at 120 units at this affordable component. In the market rate, how many total units we're looking to be built in the market rate building, element 7?
So we were at around, I think in our ground lease, it said approximately 399 units. We're working through the plans with our architects. We're somewhere in the range of 350 to 400 units.
If we can take those 400 at that 20%, that would give us about 80 units. Now, with those 80 units, that gives us an opportunity to have and address that AMI, because we were only going to have in the affordable component about 120. So that would give us that perfect mix that we were looking for to address our senior facility at the element 8, possibly incorporating AMI restriction for some workforce in element 7 with some market rate. So I could support it if we can bring that back, because I know we are in time crunch. I don't want us to delay, and I don't want us to have to take multiple bites, but we do need to have that insured, because I just don't want any curveballs coming where we agree to going forward with this tax credit application and then element 7 is all market rate. So I just don't want to waste time.
That's absolutely a fair, I think, resolution, and we're very supportive of that approach.
I would support that. I'd want to hear if my colleagues would support something similar to that. Thank you, Tony. But if we can incorporate, I think that would actually be a great mix to incorporate our market rate and workforce into the towers, having a senior facility for the 55 with the AMI.
Don't call it a facility. Sounds like you're putting them away. I'm sorry.
Having an amazing senior housing.
Thank you.
Senior housing. I apologize to all my seniors. And a senior housing on the waterfront would be phenomenal. And Mr. Jonathan Evans' comment.
Mr. Chair, with all due respect, one of the concerns that we have is renegotiating the terms and conditions that have been provided for in the agreements that we have moved forward with. If there is a situation whereby you're adding affordable or workforce into the market rate towers, remember that there is some subsidy that is provided to facilitate said development. And so there's a lot of other moving parts associated with it. And I think to build on Ms. Jenkins' point, if there is any ambiguity or deviation in the process, it lends itself to a challenge, and the challenge being successful because you have agreements and there is presentations whereby it was articulated that it would be a workforce product, and that every presentation that we have on the staff side shows that. And my concern is if there is a deviation that we're now starting to incorporate that in the market rate tower, it adds for additional complications, and then we have to reassess the arrangement that we entered into with both elements. And so it's a little bit more complicated, and there's a lot of moving parts associated with it. And I just would caution the board that try to figure out a mix that makes sense on the fly without looking at the entirety of the arrangement.
To that, go ahead. Go ahead. Hold on, Commissioner. Commissioner Lanier, go ahead.
Yeah, that was mainly my concern, and that is the reason why I pulled this off of the consent agenda, because I have tried hard to get with this project. I know that I have voted no consistently with it, because the reason why is because of things like this. Every time we have a discussion about this particular project, there's something that was not discussed, and then we end up negotiating publicly to kind of fix what's happening. And, I still have the same sentiments about it. And what we're doing now is basically negotiating in public about, how we're going to move forward. But I think the main concern is the fact that, we're hearing elderly, and I'm sure none of us have a problem with it, The issue is the fact that we just are hearing about it today, and that we're trying to move forward with workforce housing, because I thought that's what it was, workforce housing. Then we're gonna put workforce housing somewhere else. But then of course that comes into a whole lot of other negotiations, because everything has been set. Then you have to move back the timelines, and then there's just all of these things that are involved, because this is a big project. And I just think that I keep having heartburn with this project because of issues like this.
Thank you, Pro Tem. Commissioner Botel?
So I just want to go back for a second to the issue of whether or not they propose this to the Housing Authority or something that was what we thought was going to be proposed, which is workforce housing. What's the downside of doing, of reversing what Mr. Evans said, which would be to say, okay, we're going to propose this workforce first, and then if that doesn't work, we propose senior. What's the downside? What's the risk of proposing workforce as opposed to senior initially?
Listening to the developers, if you're moving more towards family-sized units, they'd have to adjust probably the site plan, the size of the units, because most of them are 1 bedroom, et cetera, 1 bedroom, maybe 1.5 baths. I haven't looked at the floor plan recently, and adjusting that mix, and they'd have to adjust the financing for it. It would change the financing. And my concern, they are very able and they have a team of people, but in terms of moving this item to the city side, time is not on our side. And to answer the question about the timing, the RFA from Florida Housing was released in early to mid-July, and they've had to sort of work in good faith that we would get to this point to be able to get it on our CRA agenda, and we don't have another CRA meeting planned. And I believe we only have one city council meeting planned. And the reason we're doing it like that is the CRA is providing the dollars, and we have to find that it's consistent with the CRA plan, but the local match has to come from the local government, from the city. So there's a whole process we have to go through for the city to be able to provide the local match.
Okay, but I don't understand why senior. Is it because senior has a better chance of getting funded, or is it because they decided they wanted to do 1-bedroom units and the cost to do them was less? Why senior? Is it because it has a better chance of getting funded?
Generally, yes, a better chance of getting funding, because Florida Housing, I took the liberty of providing, I was asked to provide a schedule for this particular application. And just on this page are a number of RFAs and the timing, and there are just certain goals that are set out with every RFA, every project, and looking at how the applications are scored, related. They are very skilled developers, so they figured out how to maximize their chances. Mr. Del Pozo, if you'll jump in and just talk about why you decided to choose elderly.
Yeah, that is the biggest component of it. Also a component of it was to try to keep the western portion of the site available for potential parking facility, for public parking facility going forward. We felt that this unit mix worked and that we could incorporate, we had assumed high workforce in the towers. Again, that is not such a big shift for us if we needed to incorporate some lower workforce type AMI levels in the towers. So we thought that this gave us the best chance of getting funded, and that the site plan worked out best doing the elderly component. And I apologize that we did not properly communicate that to everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Del Pozo. Let's take a quick break for the public comment. Well, not break, but let's take public comment.
Sure, we only have one public comment card, David Biondo.
Council, thank you for your time again.
Welcome, sir.
Initially, I was going to come up here and applaud your efforts for senior housing because I think it's a necessary thing in our town. I really do. I don't know how many, I'm a new resident, but how many senior housing developments do you have in Riviera Beach? Probably zero, as far as I know. So the thing is that we need to take care of our seniors. I'm a senior now. I could use that kind of situation, living on a fixed income. We got to think about that kind of thing to take care of our seniors. They need this. It's a prime piece of property. It's very nice. It's very reputable for seniors. I think that's that, and I think they deserve it after all their years of living here and doing things like that. It's discerning. Well, disturbs me from what I'm feeling, the lack of support up there at this point with regards to seniors. The joking, the laughing, the thinking of maybe the, old people, who needs them?
No, that's not right.
We need them, okay? And it's time that we take care of them. They took care of us when we were young. It's time that we take care of them. So I hope the council approves this resolution and project as is and moves forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Council,
Yeah,
Commissioner?
No, let me be very clear. There's no disrespect for seniors here, and we certainly want to take care of our seniors, Mr. Biondo, and we have at least one project, one space in the city, Heron Estates, where we have seniors. Believe me, absolutely. I think the issue was that this is the first time we're hearing it. So it had nothing to do necessarily with disrespecting seniors. It was that this came as a surprise to us. So it's we're thinking out loud. We're trying to process this. It's not a matter of disrespect. It's a matter of wanting to understand what it is that can happen there. Now, I have a question for Mr. Evans, and that is, when you say that there's a risk of a challenge, how much could we change element 7 without incurring any risk? In other words, if we were to say we want 10% of element 7 to be workforce and not exclusively market rate, where does that risk, where's the line where that risk comes in?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Evans, go ahead.
If I may, I'm going to defer to Ms. Jenkins with respect to the risk isn't specifically on the market rate product. The risk is on the application associated with the tax credit product, because it is so competitive that those that are in that space are going to look at other projects, and they're going to look as if what was communicated and went through the process is consistent with what the end product was. And if somebody is competing in the same space, they may call into question that there was a workforce element and a workforce discussion with the board, and then to look back at this meeting as well and see that the board had some heartburn or some challenges with respect to what the outcome was. And so therein lies where I think the confusion may cause to a challenge. And Ms. Jenkins, if I didn't explain it, can you provide some additional details with regards to that?
You're exactly right. And I don't know if you all recall, but we had it was an application challenge for the project that ended up being Berkeley Landing that delayed that project by 2 years. And the purpose of a local match is to show that there is local support for the housing that is proposed in that jurisdiction. And it's a threshold requirement. So if the developer does not receive a local match, they cannot apply. And I was reading through very quickly the resolution as presented, and I'll defer to Mr. Smith to make sure that it did not say anything that we'd have to worry about changing, that is straightforward enough that it meets the needs of what they need to go forward. And it would be a very similar document that went before City Council. I think if we look at the fact that 20%, up to 20% of the senior housing can be for those who are younger than 55, so that would give you a mix of ages. They've already proposed a mix of incomes within that income band that would be competitive. That there is a project next door, literally across the street, that would have a mix of incomes. Most of the units would be market rate. But one of the things we talked about when staff was discussing with the developers before you all agreed on the letter of intent and the other agreements that you made was when they showed us the income band for the various units and the set aside, that the lower income band did meet the requirements for the county's workforce housing program. And that was something I was looking for because the community has said they wanted mixed income types of projects. So people have an approachable opportunity. And they did structure it in a way that there would be some workforce affordability within the market rate. So within, half a block, you're going to have the senior housing, which a number of seniors still work. Not everybody, has the luxury of, living off of fixed income. So some of our seniors continue to work, especially if the bottom age range is 55. That up to 20% could be for others. So for a young professional or a young couple to live in that building and enjoy the amenities. And generally, their projects and others similarly developed are very attractive, where most any of us would love to live in these beautiful developments. You'll have that income range. So you have a mix of incomes and ages within just that project. And then you would have next door to it the quote market rate tower that would have workforce units. And I can recall a conversation that you all had, and I recall a commissioner who brought the point that as far as workforce housing, affordable housing, that we can look at the proximity of blocks adjacent to the marina to provide additional mix of incomes. But within just element 7, element 8, you're going to have a range of incomes, a range of market, and you'll be meeting the needs of quite a few within our community to enjoy the benefit of living right at the waterfront.
May I address the comment that was made about having a challenge come up at the state level based on what we're proposing here? I looked at the ground lease and it all is consistent with the income levels that we're proposing here. It is silent as to whether elderly or family. There is no mention of it. So we do not feel that what we're proposing in any way is giving rise to a potential challenge for viability in our site control. Our ground leases, I think, supports what we're proposing here. I understand your comments, and I'm sorry again that we did not more clearly communicate to the board in advance of our intention to submit this as an elderly application. However, we definitely remain very interested in providing a project, an overall redevelopment that's going to provide opportunities for all income levels. That's our goal.
Thank you, sir. Board, any additional comments, questions? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Botel?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller Anderson?
No.
Commissioner McCoy? Chair Pro Temp Lanier?
No.
Chair Lawson?
Yes.
That vote passes 3-5 with Commissioner Miller Anderson, 3-2, with Commissioner Miller Anderson dissenting and Chair Pro Temp Lanier dissenting.
Thank you so much, Board. And if, Mr. Tony, if you're still there, just some clarity for the support of this item is to bring back for the city council so that we can address what the unit will look like holistically, 7 and 8. So I'd love to see what we're going to do with the market rate, with the senior housing, and also the affordable workforce component.
Absolutely. You have our commitment to work with staff on proposing an overall holistic mixed income development that I think you'll be very supportive of. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Thank you so much for the presentation. Additional comments, Mr. Evans? If you want to address any of the public comments?
No, Mr. Chair, I don't think.
Thank you, sir. And discussion by Executive Director?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. General Counsel?
None, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Botel? Commissioner Miller Anderson?
None.
Commissioner Lanier?
None.
Commissioner McCoy?
I just wanted to kind of say, I'm not actually eligible for one of those units yet, but it's becoming increasingly more difficult to hear. And I think the last meeting, Commissioner Miller Anderson told me there was a knob here to adjust the volume, but it seems that none of these speakers up here are working, because when we're having these presentations from someone remotely, you can hear it way out there, but it doesn't exactly, I would hope that that's checked, because, when those speakers are speaking, I can't hear anything coming from these speakers. So Mr. Evans, it has to be some better acoustics in here, because it becomes almost impossible to hear. But now I got an adjusting knob, but that only applies to what's in the room. But when it comes to someone that's speaking from a virtual platform, the speakers are way in the back of the room. So perhaps we can try to work on that.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Stebbins, please.
I did have a presentation of what it would take to modernize the acoustics here. So I got a little sticker shock, but we're working on that. But we have some proposals for the board to consider. But we had an assessment done of the entire campus, both inside and outside.
Thank you so much for coming. Commissioner McCoy, anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
With no further business, this meeting's adjourned.
I'm not eligible like Sean,